the change in the skin, the change in weight, all of the other things. There's no reason why we shouldn't do great. So we are making it possible for them to do supersonic and get us back on the track. I mean, think of it, 30 years ago, we actually had planes that flew much faster than we do now. It took you half the time to get to a location. So we've regressed, and we're going to progress. Right. Sort of an amazing thing, isn't it, though? We've gone backwards. On Wall Street, they haven't done that. If Goldman Sachs was like that, you wouldn't have Goldman Sachs anymore. Yeah, please.
Are you planning to deploy Marines in California to address the situation in Los Angeles? Are you going to deploy Marines in California?
We'll see what happens. I mean, I think we have it very well under control. I think it would have been a very bad situation. It was heading in the wrong direction. It's now heading in the right direction. And we hope to have the support of Gavin, because Gavin's the big beneficiary as we straighten out his problems. I mean, his state is a mess. And I'd like to get somebody involved in the rail because, look, personally, it should have never been built because you can fly there for $2. And what are you doing? They're doing that. You could drive. You could do lots of different things. You know, if they did a study, if you gave every passenger the finest limousine service in the history of our world, the most expensive chauffeur-driven, white-glove limousine service back and forth, we would have saved billions of dollars as opposed to building this monstrosity that's going up. And I've never seen anything. You know, I've seen cost overruns. I'm a person, I've always done well on cost overruns. I don't have them. But I will tell you, I have never seen cost overruns. You see them where they're 20% more, 50%, 100% more. These are thousands of percent. Nobody even knows. They have no idea. And it was supposed to be from San Francisco to Los Angeles. Well, they just made it way outside of Los Angeles, where it's stopping in the middle of, I don't want to say nowhere, because I happen to like one of those little cities very much, but it's way short of the destination. And our government is saying, you know, why are we involved in this thing? It's been handled so badly. Before him, but he really blew it. So, you know, all right, one more question.
Speak to any of the discussions that were had there and the purpose of that retreat, your time at Camp David.
On a what?
Your time at Camp David. Can you speak to what discussions were had there and the purpose of that retreat?
Well, I don't want to speak to discussions. I mean, I told you what we were there for a little bit. We had discussions on many topics. We had a group of people, a large group of people, including generals and admirals and lots of others. And all I can say is our country's in great shape. We're in great shape economically. The bill that Mike and Jason and all the people are working on is going to be, I think, amazing. I think it's going to be one of the most important pieces of legislation we've ever had in this country. It's going to do things that you wouldn't believe. And we're going to, you know, I have a very simple phrase. We ran an election on very simple words: make America great again. That's what we're doing. We're making it great. We're making it safe. We're making it beautiful. And we're making it very wealthy again. You know, wealth is okay. You need wealth to take care of lots of other people. We have to make our country better. It has to heal from 4 years of abuse. Our country was abused badly by a very incompetent person and a group of people that weren't incompetent, but they were radical left lunatics. And they ran the country with an auto pen. And I hope that law enforcement's looking at that very seriously. That's like a takeover of our country in a certain way, because this guy had no idea what he was doing. You saw that during the debate. You saw that in other cases. I mean, he had no idea. I saw it years ago. By the way, 40 years ago, he had no. He was bad 40 years ago. We're not just talking about. And they always like to say age, but it's not age. I know people 88, 89, 92. Bernie Marcus, who just passed away, was 95. I spoke to him a year before. He was 100%. It's not age. It's something else. But whatever it is, you can't have that in this country. The damage he's done to this country is unbelievable. But the good news is we've got much of it fixed already. And the rest of it will happen.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, you just mentioned Iran. Did you discuss Iran? Did you discuss the Gaza war?
Yeah, we discussed a lot of things, and it went very well, very smooth. We'll see what happens. You know, we're trying to do something with a country we just spoke about, Iran. I think you should negotiate this. You might be better. I think I'm going to send you today. What a good idea. This could have been the idea of the
That's
day.
true, Freedom Inc.
We'll have Dara get up and negotiate. They are good negotiators, but they're tough. Sometimes they can be too tough. That's the problem. So we're trying to make a deal so that there's no destruction and death. And we've told them that, and I've told them that, and I hope that's the way it works out. But it might not work out that way. We'll soon find out. Yeah, please.
In 2020, when you were talking about unrest in American cities, you said, quote, "We have to go by the laws. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor." What changed now? Why is this situation different to not consult with Governor Newsom about this?
Well, the biggest change from that statement is we have an incompetent governor. So I talked about governors, but I didn't talk about he's an incompetent.
Well, because he did consult with Governor Newsom, and Governor Newsom just decided to let these illegal alien insurrectionist invaders continue to destroy our cities while waving a foreign flag and burning American flags. So he had no choice but to activate the National Guard.
But make sure there's going to be law and order. You had a disaster happening, and they now admit it was a disaster. I watched the chief yesterday, who's a good man, by the way, and he said, well, we're lucky we did this because they were overwhelmed. You saw what was happening. So we did the right thing. Everybody agrees to that. But you have a governor who let the city burn down, didn't want water
Piece of shit.
to be sent down to him. I sent billions of gallons of water. I wanted to do it in the first term. He wouldn't do it over, I don't know, they have environmental reasons, but there were no environmental reasons. I think it's just a political philosophy.
No choice.
But
That's right.
it's lucky for the people in Los Angeles and in California that we did what we did. We got it just in time. It's still simmering a little bit, but not very much. Yeah, please.
Have you gotten
What crime has Governor Newsom committed?
A crime has he committed? I think his
That's actually not true, no, man.
primary crime is running for governor because he's done such a bad job.
So let me introduce myself. So I'm attorney Michael Ehline. I've been practicing law for about 20 years. My primary area of practice modernly, as we speak, is catastrophic injuries, but I'm an inactive U.S. Marine. I used to extern for the California Court of Appeal, and I've got a lot of experience doing writs and appeals. And so my background is pretty solid in law and history. And if you look at the recent cases that have come down from the district courts, as well as the appellate courts and the Supreme Court, Trump activating the National Guard to prevent the illegal alien insurrection that's taking place, funded by Walmart and the Communist Chinese Party, was absolutely not unconstitutional. In fact, President Trump was exercising his duties as commander-in-chief to protect our country's integrity and our border security, as well as the states, because not everybody that lives in California is an anti-American communist insurrectionist, apparently, like a lot of my commenters. So let's keep on going.
Would do the kind of things that he did. And then, you talk about projects. They want to build a train going from San Francisco to L.A., and it's costing hundreds of billions of dollars more than they thought it was going to cost. It's not even believable. To Brad and to people sitting here, would you believe that a train, it was going to cost X dollars and it might be 100 times X?
Would have paid for this for about 50 million American children.
You're right.
50 million American children instead of a 3-mile train track that never got built.
We could have put Lincoln in charge with no experience. He would have done a good job. I guarantee you that. All right, please, Peter.
Mr. President, have you gotten an
Yeah,
update from
Peter,
your
Peter, go.
negotiating?
Thank you, President Trump. So it seems like Gavin Newsom likes the attention that he's getting right now from
I do,
you.
yeah, I think
It
he
seems
likes
like he does. If you look at recent history, somebody who was running for president, you, who got arrested and had a mugshot, you could make the argument that politically that wound up helping you. Are you worried at all at this moment that talking about him getting arrested could be helpful?
I mean, why would he be worried? I mean, in this case, it wasn't lawfare. I mean, Gavin Newsom's a piece of shit. The way he's driven that country into the ground and helped flood our country with illegal aliens for the sole purpose of redistricting his state with further congressional seats by using the U.S. Census, which in my opinion is high treason, is obvious for the world to see. Burning up the state's medical care system so he can give all these illegal alien foreign invaders free stuff that Sleepy Joe ushered across our borders, catch and release. I mean, what a joke. I mean, I'm curious to see what Trump has to say, but what do you guys think? Give me a bunch of ones. Look, and by the way, I'm a libertarian, so I'm not a Trump MAGA guy, but there are many things, because of my experience as a Second Amendment rights lawyer, that I like about what Trump is doing. I don't like the war in Iran, and we're going to talk about the real reason for that war. It's the BRICS currency system versus the fiat currency. In my opinion, unconstitutional takeover of the American economy. We should have a non-fiat based currency, a currency system backed by gold and silver like our founding fathers wanted. We should not have centralized bankers based out of Israel and Central Europe controlling, and Eastern Europe controlling our economy. But let's hear about the difference between the Democrat Party's war against Donald Trump and lawfare to come up with bullshit charges against Donald Trump to try to make him look bad and turning him into a martyr, compared to what a piece of garbage Gavin Newsom is, and the differences. Here we go.
Times in this country. I watched Minneapolis burn. Look at what happened in so many different parts of California. You take a look at what happened in San Diego. There's so many different places where we let it burn. We want to be politically correct. We wanted to be nice. We want to be nice to the criminal. And what you're doing is destroying the fabric of our life in this country. No, we did the right thing. We've been given credit by people that I would least suspect. Why I would say that some of the people that came in and said, thank goodness, they said, some of them, thank God that Trump got involved. And I'm very happy I got involved.
Looks like the entire Communist Party showed up to try to trash my live stream today. So I'm glad I have you, Lenny. Lenny, are you one of my moderators? Let me take a look.
And I think Gavin, in his own way, is probably happy I got involved. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Well, what do you make of the fact that he says you want a civil war on the streets of America?
No, that's just the opposite. I don't want a civil war. Civil war would happen if you left it to people like him. And I liked him. You know, I always got along with him. Never had a problem with him.
Joke.
But he's grossly incompetent. Okay.
In London. Have you gotten an update from your team in London negotiating?
What? Louder.
Have you gotten an update from your team in London negotiating the China trade talks?
We are doing well with China. China's not easy, just like your home country is not easy there. I think we're doing very well. They're over there now. I'm only getting good reports. It's a little early, but they'll be calling in soon. In fact, probably when I get back, I'll have my first call from them. We want to.
By the way, everybody, welcome to my show again. I'm attorney Michael Ehline, and I'm breaking down the war, the real reason for the war. It's BRICS, the BRICS countries versus the fiat currency Federal Reserve, and that's the real reason the CIA and the Mossad have launched a war against Iran. Obviously, they probably do have nukes, and obviously, I'm no friend of the Muslim Islamic jihadi government of Iran. But anyways, guys, Lenny Malley is now a moderator. So Lenny, with great power comes great responsibility. Just make sure these commie insurrectionists that have infiltrated my channel today don't do anything stupid. Keep an eye on them, but don't just time people out. I'm all about giving people the right to say what they got to say. And hopefully, instead of winning over people, winning them over, right? I'm not like these lefties with their channels who just time people out for no reason. So unless they're real a-holes, be nice to them, Lenny. But you've been around long enough now to where you've earned your right. I'm Michael Ehline. I am a natural law advocate. I believe, like our founding fathers did, that all of our rights come from our Creator. And I believe in natural law. I'm a follower of John Locke and Sir William Blackstone and Thomas Aquinas. And I'm glad that you guys joined me today for Donald Trump's speech. And after this, we're going to get into finishing off the video that I did earlier today about the BRICS currency system. So let's get back into it.
It's hard to believe, actually, but I saw what happened.
Chevy.
She's certainly different. Anger management. I think she has to go to an anger management class.
So Chevy, thanks for joining me again. Guys, give me a bunch of ones for Chevy. Chevy is one of the biggest financial contributors to this show, and he's made it possible for me to convince my wife to let me keep doing these shows because honestly, I work for my wife and my children, but she knows that this gives me a lot of emotional well-being by being able to do this and bring my knowledge to people who want to learn about how to become a lawyer with or without law school. how to break down the law, and how to understand our current political system. And Chevy is one of the original guys. He's one of my very first viewers, and he is somebody who supports Chile de Castro, a dear friend of mine, who is a First Amendment. Well, he used to be a First Amendment auditor, but he's a government accountability advocate, and that's what I am. I believe in holding the government accountable, Republican or Democrat. Unfortunately, the Democrat Party decided they would become a full-blown Marxist, anti-American party that thinks that tampon machines should be in the boys' restroom. So I am a recovering Democrat. I used to be I'm an agrarian liberal, but with a pro-American bent. So I believe that you should have the right to do whatever you want to do without trying to force your bullshit on my children. So I don't believe that boys can be girls. I don't believe that girls can be boys. I'm an inactive United States Marine. I bleed red, white, and blue, as I believe that Chevy does. So Chevy, if you got any more cool videos of music for me to play, I can't promise that I'm going to do a dance for you today, but definitely I'll play it for my audience. Let's go.
An update on what's happening to the entry of aid into Gaza right now. We've had people being shot by Israeli forces who are trying to get aid from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Yes.
Gaza right now is in the midst of a massive negotiation between us and Hamas and Israel, and Iran actually is involved. And we'll see what's going to happen with Gaza. We want to get the hostages back. That's all I can tell you. Yeah, please, in the back.
That's fair, Ben. That's fair.
You said yesterday when I reported that it was not insurrection taking place, but then on Truth Social a bit later, you'd said they were insurrectionists. After what you've seen
You're talking about in L.A.?
Yes, sir, in L.A.
I wouldn't call it quite an insurrection, but it could have...
Oh, Freedom Inc., I think you and I have a lot more in common than you think. If you watch my show a little while, I think you'll understand. Yeah, like one of the commenters said, I just call them like I see them. I think both political parties are a disgrace. I think they're both controlled by our enemies like communist China. I mean, we know that Bill Clinton destroyed the Democrat Party, and then, of course, Barry Obama did that as well, primarily with help from the communist Chinese. I mean, we know that Communist Party General Charlie Tree would bring in suitcases full of money for the Clintons, and ultimately Communist China ended up with Seal Beach Naval Weapons Station. I mean, what a disgrace Clinton was. And then, of course, Obama tried to start a race war, and he's, using his woke bullshit culture, trying to teach public school kids that white people are oppressors and that non-whites are oppressed, and trying to create a race war. That is not going to heal America. That is a typical leftist, Marxist, Harvard Law School professor. We do not need anybody like that anywhere near our government. And of course, I'm very, very happy with a lot of the Second Amendment rights issues that the Trump Justice Department has advocated. One of my briefs with Alan Beck is going before the Supreme Court in the Department of Justice, has joined us as amicus, which is, I think it's only happened a few times in recent history. So look, I don't like a lot of the stuff that Orange Man is doing, but there are a lot of things that he does that I do like. I'm not one of these guys who throws out the baby with the bathwater, but I definitely don't think that the reason we got into this war with Iran was necessarily over nukes. I think it had to do with the BRICS currency system. In my other video earlier today, I talk about that. And so I'll teach you guys a little about the BRICS countries and about the real war between the currency system that could end up putting us into a nuclear war. Let's keep going.
The main topic, yeah.
Mr. President.
We talked about Lebanon also, yeah, we did.
What about Lebanon?
Well, Lebanon's working very hard. They have a great new ambassador that I put there. Man, I know very well. He's very smart. I didn't even know he was Lebanese. And I said, why would you want Lebanon? He said, I was born there. I love it. I love the people. I said, it's very dangerous going to Lebanon. There are some ambassadorships that are wonderful. There are some that are dangerous. I said, Michel, his name is.
Got that right, Ozzy.
Michel, very elegant man. And I said, why would you want this? And he said, because I love my country and I love those people. I said, it's very dangerous. He goes, I don't care. This is not a man that lived on danger. He's a very successful man from here. And he wanted to be the ambassador despite probably a very dangerous situation he's going into. You see what's going on. But I had great respect for that. He loves that country. He loves it. He was born there. He loves the country. Yeah.
Mr. President, you've got a big, beautiful parade coming up on Saturday.
We do.
What's your biggest expectations for that? Then I've got a second question in regards to Gavin Newsom. Go ahead and talk about the big, beautiful parade.
It's such a, thank you, Brian. It's such a I think, important moment for this country. 2 weeks ago, I was calling people and back and forth with leaders, including President Putin, including French president, including lots of different people. And all of them said, we're celebrating victory in World War II. And I said, wow, isn't that amazing? We're the only one that wasn't celebrating, and we're the one that won the war. Now, Russia did help. They did lose 51 million people, in all fairness. People would say, oh, he's sticking up for Russia. No, they lost 51 million people. And, we can't forget that. But France was celebrating. And, as you know, Hitler made a speech at the Eiffel Tower. But when I spoke to President Macron, he said, oh, we are celebrating the great victory of World War II. And I think that's great that he was doing it. But we're the one that won it. And we weren't celebrating. I said to myself, isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
And I think it's time for us to celebrate a little bit. We've had a lot of victories. We won 2 world wars, and then we go out and change the name of the forts where we won the wars. You go
Ridiculous.
We win world wars from Fort Robert E. Lee, from Fort Bragg, from all the different forts. And what do? We change the name of the forts because we want to be politically correct.
Yeah, that's true.
So a lot of them we're changing back. You probably noticed Fort Bragg and others. But I think it's a time to celebrate our military. We've rebuilt our military largely. Little low on ammunition. That's because it goes out very fast to other countries, one in particular, but we'll get that back very quickly. But we have a military the likes of which nobody has. Nobody comes close. We have the best equipment in the world. We make the best equipment in the world. There's no military like our military. We showed that with ISIS. I was told by the television generals it would take 4 years to win, and we did it in 3 weeks, and it was headed by General Raisin Kane, who's now the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's great. Just left him. No, I think it's time that we celebrate. And I sort of have to laugh at these people. Well, you're going to spend a lot of money. A lot of that money is being paid for by me and people that make donations. I don't know if you know that. A lot of it won't even come out of the military. I think I can say that, Susie, right? We have people putting up money to do it. Not that it's necessary, because I think it's a great expenditure. We have many tanks. We have all sorts of new ones and very old ones, old from World War I and World War II. It's really a celebration of the Army. So the Army is a year older than the country. So next year we...
By the way, I did a video the other day about the parade, and I'll be honest with you, as a Marine, I was blown away at the undisciplined marching and the unsquared away uniforms of these Army soldiers. And I was just thinking to myself, my God, I hope we never have another woke, demented president like Biden or Obama, where they basically just turned our military into a DEI joke. I mean, these people, they're fat, they're out of shape. I was not impressed by most of the soldiers. The only ones that I was impressed by, well, as rightly so, would be the 75th Rangers, the Green Berets. Those guys look legit, but the regular rank and file Army, to me, they looked awful. So I'm hoping that we clean house and return our military back to something that's respectable. Give me a bunch of ones if you guys agree.
Celebrate 250 years, but we're celebrating the Army on Flag Day. And it's not my birthday. It is my birthday, but I'm not celebrating my birthday. I'm celebrating Flag Day. It happens to be the same day, so I take a little heat. But Flag Day is the appropriate date. And we're celebrating 250.
You're right. So somebody made a comment that this is not live. This was live a little while ago. Unfortunately, I'm not able to catch up to the actual part of the stream. It may already be over, but most of the people who just joined me didn't get to see the whole live. So this is Trump Live, but this show is not live while he's speaking. So if you guys are upset about that, you're welcome to go to one of the communist anti-American channels that you came from when you crawled out from under your rock to try and attack the United States of America. All right, go ahead. You can leave anytime.
50 years of the Army, a great service. And remember, think of thousands of soldiers going to bravely march down the streets. It's going to be a beautiful day, I think. And we're going to celebrate our country.
You spoke of leadership. And real quickly, speaking of Gavin Newsom, is he the right leader for California, considering how massive their economy is and all these U.S. investments coming in? Is he the right governor and leader for the future of California and for
I don't
U.S.
think he
investors?
is. I mean, I think he's done a terrible job. And, you know, he's a guy, I always got along with him. You look at his past statements about me. I was a great president. I always took care of California, you know, all
That's
that.
right, Roger.
But I'm just talking on results. You look, you know, he has the advantage of beautiful weather, maybe the best weather
money.
of any state when you think about it. Beautiful weather, beautiful ocean, beautiful everything. You have all the advantages, and he didn't take advantage of that. And he's let people come in by the millions who are overrunning your hospitals, your education system.
Ridiculous.
And your police are being overrun. Look at what's happened. He should only be happy.
Well, first of all, the entire education system in this country is run by Marxists, starting with the National Education Association, as well as the California Teachers Association. So if anything, Gavin Newsom gave us all an excuse to homeschool our kids. Give me a bunch of ones if you think that you should be homeschooling your kids and that the tax money that you're forced to pay to brainwash kids into hating their country with these anti-American Marxist commie public school teachers, you'd be better off homeschooling your kids, teaching them patriotism and love of country, and teaching them martial arts, teaching them how to properly clean a firearm, how to shoot, how to properly battle site zero in a weapon, than having some public school teacher try to convince your son that he's a girl and then hide it from you, try to keep it a secret, right? We don't need child groomers teaching our kids. Give me a bunch of ones if you don't think that we should have child groomers, freaks, brainwashing our children while they're still forming their opinions into this weird Marxist anti-American religion. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree.
I sent in the military because if I didn't send them in, you would have had a problem there, the likes of which we haven't seen in a long time. Yeah, please. Thank you,
right,
Brian,
Jeff.
very
Hell
much.
yeah.
Supersonic flight. On supersonic flight.
Supersonic
Yes,
flight.
sir. I know you just signed an executive order
Right.
on it. Do you want to see a supersonic Air Force One in the next 10 years or so?
Oh, well, I don't care too much about that, but I would like to see, you know,
yeah.
if you think about it, flight, the word flight's an interesting word, but it's probably the only category where we've actually gone backwards, because we used to have the Concorde, and we could fly to London, Brad, very quickly and nicely.
That's right, Carmen.
And today it takes you 2 times and 3 times as long. It's the only thing where we've regressed. By the way, the Concorde, to my way of thinking, to this day, Michael, because you're very much into aesthetics, I know, but to this day was one of the most beautiful pieces of art I've ever seen. It was a piece of art, the beauty of the Concorde. It was the most beautiful plane, but it was you know, got you there in half the time. Now you spend a lot of time, and there's no reason for it. Because, you know, they have the sonic boom. It's not a huge problem, but they have the sonic boom thing pretty well figured out. The technology changes, the change in the skin, the change in weight, all of the other things. There's no reason why we shouldn't do great. So we are making it possible for them to do supersonic and get us back on the track. I
That'd be
mean,
nice.
think of it. 30 years ago, we actually had planes that flew much faster than we do now. It took you half the time to get to a location. So we've regressed.
And look, not to disparage anyone, but people are talking about how Trump is mentally ill and Musk said that he's mentally ill. I mean, you guys supported a guy who clearly was suffering from dementia from the President Otto pen, clearly suffering from dementia. And they had Pocahontas using an auto pen to destroy our country and flood our country with over 20 million illegal aliens. You have zero credibility, guys. You supported a complete blithering idiot for president. So give me a bunch of ones if you guys agree that President Otto Penn is the worst president in the history of this country, besides Barry Soetoro. Bunch of ones. Let's go.
And we're going to progress, but it's way short of the destination. And our government is saying, you know, why are we involved in this thing? It's been handled so badly before him, but he really blew it. So, you know, all right, one more question.
That were had there and the purpose of that retreat, your time at Camp David.
On a what?
Your time at Camp David, can you speak to what discussions were had there and the purpose of that retreat?
Well, I don't want to speak to discussions. I mean, I told you what we were there for a little bit. We had discussions on many topics. We had a group of people, large group of people, including generals and admirals and lots of others. And all I can say is our country's in great shape. We're in great shape economically. The bill that Mike and Jason and all the people are working on is going to be, I think, amazing. I think it's going to be one of the most important pieces of legislation we've ever had in this country. It's going to do things that you wouldn't believe. And we're going to, I have a very simple phrase. We ran an election on very simple words: make America great again. That's what we're doing. We're making it great. We're making it safe. We're making it beautiful. And we're making it very wealthy again. Wealth is okay. You need wealth to take care of lots of other people. We have to make our country better. It has to heal from 4 years of abuse. Our country was abused badly by a very incompetent person and a group of people that weren't incompetent, but they were radical left lunatics. And they ran the country with an auto pen. And I hope that law enforcement's looking at that very seriously. That's like a takeover of our country in a certain way, because this guy had no idea what he was doing. You saw that during the debate. You saw that in other cases. I mean, he had no idea. I saw it years ago. By the way, 40 years ago, he had no. He was bad 40 years ago.
Sure was.
I'm not just talking about. And they always like to say age, but it's not age. I know people 88, 89, 92. Bernie Marcus, who just passed away, was 95. I spoke to him a year before. He was 100%. It's not age. It's something else. But whatever it is, you can't have that in this country.
That's right.
The damage he's done to this country is unbelievable. But
Disgrace.
the good news is we've got much of it fixed already.
Absolute disgrace.
And the rest of it
Mentioned
will
Joe,
happen.
piece of garbage.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, you just mentioned Iran. Did you discuss Iran?
Very
Did you
well.
discuss
We discussed a lot of
the
things.
Gaza war?
Yeah, we discussed a lot of things, and it went very well, very smooth. We'll see what happens. We're trying to do something with a country we just spoke about, Iran. I think you should negotiate this. You might be better. I think I'm going to send you to. What a good idea. This could have been the idea of the day. We'll have Dara get up and negotiate. They are good negotiators, but they're tough. Sometimes they can be too tough. That's the problem. So we're trying to make a deal so that there's no destruction and death. And we've told them that, and I've told them that, and I hope that's the way it works out. But it might not work out that way. We'll soon find out. Yeah, please.
In 2020, when you were talking about unrest in American cities, you said, quote, "We have to go by the laws. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor." What changed now? Why is this situation different to not consult with Governor Newsom about this?
Well, the biggest change from that statement is we have an incompetent governor.
Yeah,
So
I can answer that, and the Supreme Court's already answered it as well. Gavin Newsom has shirked his duties as the governor of California, instead favoring illegal alien criminal insurrectionists, burning American flags and destroying our cities. Gavin Newsom is an absolute disgrace. He's been recalled, and unfortunately, it's a single-party state, much like communist China. So the Secretary of State, another commie, obviously didn't go along with the recall, and that's why he's still in power. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. Gavin Newsom is a piece of shit. Give me a bunch of twos if you think I'm a radical right-wing, tinfoil hat, homophobe, bigot, whatever you want to call me. Let's see what you guys have to say.
I talked about governors, but I didn't talk about he's an incompetent governor. Look at the job he's doing in California. He's destroying one of our great states. And if I didn't get involved, if we didn't bring the Guard in, and we would bring more in if we needed it, because we have to make sure there's going to be law and order. You
Thanks,
had a disaster happening, and they now admit it was a disaster. I watched the chief yesterday, who's a good man, by the way, and he said, "Wow, we're lucky we did this because they were overwhelmed." You saw what was happening. So we did the right thing. Everybody agrees to that. But you have a governor who let the city burn down, didn't want water to be sent down to him. And I sent billions of gallons of water. I wanted to do it in the first term. He wouldn't do it over, I don't know, they have environmental reasons, but there were no environmental reasons. I think it's just a political philosophy. But it's lucky for the people in Los Angeles and in California that we did what we did. We got it just in time. It's still simmering a little bit, but not very much. Yeah, please.
Have you gotten?
What crime has Governor Newsom committed?
A crime has he committed? I think his primary crime is running for governor because he's done such a bad job what he's done to that state is like what Biden did to this country.
Yep, disgrace.
And that's pretty bad. It's a wrong philosophy.
The president's primary job is to protect our border security. What did Sleepy Joe did? He reversed Trump's executive order of shelter in place, come into a port of entry. And then what he did is he flooded our country with over 20 million illegal aliens with the sole and express purpose of redistricting the entire country blue by using the United States Census with the body count of illegal aliens by sending them to these protective cities, these sanctuary cities that are Democrat, right? And giving them free everything at taxpayer expense. Less than 3% of these people even have jobs. They're absolutely destroying what's left of our social security and medical systems in these states. And you're seeing that black males in particular are fleeing to the Republican Party because of that, because they realize that they're being replaced by illegal alien criminals and sub-Saharan Africans with minus 50 IQs. And quite frankly, they're sick of it. And what did Biden do? He did what's called a catch and release program, because Biden knew, or Elizabeth Warren, whoever actually did all this stuff, because Sleepy Joe obviously was suffering from dementia and didn't know where he was half the time. They did a policy of catch and release instead of incarceration, because they would have been required to have an immigration hearing within 48 hours, and then they would have been deported. By catching and release, they'll be able to stay here for up to 4 to 7 years, which all but guarantees the Democrat Party will pick up 10 to 20 new Democrat House seats using the United States Census, which I believe is treason. Give me a bunch of ones if you think it's treason to use illegal aliens to try and redistrict the entire country blue. Tell me what you think. Give me a bunch of twos if you think I'm a racist, bigot, and a homophobe. Let's check it out.
About all of the costs in California. You talk about all of the people that are flowing in, destroying life for everyone else. So no, I don't think it's going to help them. I think it's actually very bad for them.
And right around the time that we were walking in here, the governor and the state attorney general said that they're going to sue you for sending the National Guard in. They're saying there's no invasion, there's no rebellion. The president is trying to manufacture chaos and crisis on the ground for his own political ends. Federalizing the California National Guard is an abuse.
And by the way, here's another problem I have with the woke. You know, being a Marine, my mentality is it's a merit-based system. The woke literally blame other people when they riot and destroy cities. It's Trump's fault that we're throwing bricks through your car. It's Trump's fault that we slashed your tires. It's Trump's fault that they're burning American flags and waving a foreign flag. Let me tell you something. If you go to Mexico as an American national and burn a Mexican flag, you go to prison. If you go to communist China, if you don't get disappeared, you will go to prison. These people should not be in our country. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. Give me a bunch of twos if you think I'm a racist, bigot, and a homophobe.
Use of the president's authority under law.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You watched the same clips as I did. Cars burning all over the place, people rioting. And by the way, we stopped it. We were able to make it much better, but it still looked pretty bad. And in watching clips last night, people were saying this is really a big problem. And until we went in, if we didn't do the job, that place would be burning down just like the houses burned down.
Absolutely.
They were in big trouble last night, Peter. You know it. And the night before, and the night before that. And I feel we had no choice. I don't want to see happen what happened so many times in this country. I watched Minneapolis burn. Yeah. Look at what happened in so many different parts of California. You take a look at what happened in San Diego. There's so many different places where we let it burn. We want to be politically correct. We wanted to be nice. We want to be nice to the criminal. And what you're doing is destroying the fabric of our life in this country. No, we did the right thing. We've been given credit for by people that I would least suspect. Why I would say that some of the people that came in and said, thank goodness, they said, some of them, thank God that Trump got involved. And I'm very happy I got involved. And I think Gavin.
Yeah, I got a question for you. Are any of you a slight bit confused why the leftist run news media keeps calling the 3-hour riot on January 6th an insurrection, but they don't call a literal insurrection by foreign national illegal aliens an insurrection? Is anybody, give me a bunch of ones if you're a little confused, that the leftist, communist, anti-American news media hasn't declared the burning of American cities, burning American flags, and waving foreign national flags in our cities, an insurrection, but a 3-hour riot where only one thing was stolen, a lectern, with the audience filled with Antifa members dressed as Trump supporters, as well as undercover federal agents who were inviting people into the Capitol, who later arrested them, threw them in 10 by 10 cells, and denied them the right to legal counsel. How was that an insurrection? But destroying trillions of dollars worth of property, along with BLM and Antifa, anti-American communists, hasn't been declared an insurrection by Communist News Network, PMSNBC, ABC, and CBS. Why is that mostly peaceful? Are any of you slightly convinced now that our news media is full of shit? Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. Give me a bunch of twos if you think that I'm a tinfoil hatter. I'd like to see what you guys have to say about that.
And in his own way, is probably days ago, they said, I don't believe one of the announcers on a business network went wild, said, I can't believe these numbers. Those numbers are good. The numbers are going to be very good. I think we're going to have a great 4 years. You know, we had the greatest.
You know, not only did Fox pay out a bunch of money for lying, but CBS, CNN, and these other news stations paid out a lot more for lying. And I'm not a Fox News guy. I bring you the real news because I'm a libertarian. But these commie liberals, they obviously the other news media agencies are Democrat, right? And they don't like Fox. But the bottom line is all these news agencies are full of shit. And they've all been sued for defamation. And they've lost a lot more money than Fox News. You guys just don't do your research, man. Stop listening to ChatGPT. It's programmed by a bunch of anti-Americans, in my opinion, as well as Grok, a bunch of leftists. So you're not really getting any truth from that. You're just getting a skewed political opinion of someone who hates America. Let's keep going.
Greatest economy in history during my 4 years. I think this one's going to blow it away. Yeah.
Mr. President,
Go ahead, please.
do you have a message for Greta Thunberg, and did she come up on your call with the Prime Minister today?
Well, she's a strange person. She's a young, angry person. I don't know if it's real anger. It's hard to believe, actually. But I saw what happened. She's certainly different.
That's right. Controlled
anger management. I think she has to go to an anger management class. That's my primary recommendation for her.
Was she kidnapped by Israel, as she says? Was she kidnapped?
I find it. I think Israel has enough problems without kidnapping Greta Thunberg.
And secondly, are you going to
Is that what she said? She was kidnapped by Israel?
Yes, sir. Are you going to get rid of the Tesla and the Starlink service that you have here at the White House?
No, I haven't heard that. I mean, I may move the Tesla around a little bit, but I don't think we'll be doing that with Starlink. It's a good service.
Where are you going to move it to? Move it around. What do you mean?
I have a lot of locations.
Actually, about the Tesla.
I got so many locations that I don't know what to do with them all.
About the Tesla, did you ever see Elon Musk get physical with the Treasury Secretary?
No, I didn't.
And I tried to
They
ask.
did have an argument, but I didn't see a lot of physicality there.
And there was this New York Times report that he did not want to talk about, Elon Musk, that
We are
alleged that he,
absolutely.
towards the end of his time in the White House, was blurring the lines between recreational use of drugs and medicinal. Do you think he ever had drugs here at the White House?
I really don't know. I don't think so. I hope not. Look, I wish him well. You understand. We had a
Hey, what do you guys think? Do you think that Hunter Biden, the drug addict son of Sleepy Joe, brought cocaine into the White House? What do you guys think? Give me a bunch of ones if you agree he did. Give me a bunch of twos if you think I'm a conspiracy theorist, because I don't toe the anti-American Communist Democrat Party line. Let's see what you guys have to say.
good relationship, and I just wish him well. Very well, actually. Yeah.
About aid in Gaza, you mentioned now the flotilla. Do you have a response at all about Israel intercepting this boat? And can you give us an update on what's happening to the entry of aid into Gaza right now? We've had people being shot by Israeli forces who are trying to get aid from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Yes.
Gaza right now is in the midst of a massive negotiation between us and Hamas and Israel, and Iran actually is involved. And we'll see what's going to happen with Gaza. We want to get the hostages back. That's all I can tell you. Yeah, please, in the back.
Yeah. Back to California briefly. You said yesterday when I reported that it was not insurrection taking place, but then on True Social a bit later, you'd said they were insurrection.
Hey guys, considering how many commie libs in here, I'm surprised that 62% of you actually agree that Dementia Joe was the worst president in the history of this country. Come on, guys, really? With all the commie libs in here, couldn't you at least convince us that Sleepy Joe was a good president? I mean, the least you could do, right? Instead of just saying liar, liar, liar without presenting any evidence. By the way, I'm attorney Michael Ehline. I live in a fact-based world based on evidence, based on laying a proper foundation and facts. And so far, all you guys are doing is just regurgitating what CNN told you to think. So I'm not impressed so far, guys. You can do better, guys. Come on, let's go.
After what you
You're
said
talking
now,
about their thoughts on the deal, and I said, it's just not acceptable. I would say, yeah. I don't know what else I can talk about the weather.
Well, you can talk about Lebanon.
Pretty much that's the main topic. Yeah.
Mr. President.
We talked about Lebanon also. Yeah, we did.
What about Lebanon?
Well, Lebanon's working very hard. They have a great new ambassador that I put there. Man, I know very well. He's very smart. I didn't even know he was Lebanese. And I said, why would you want Lebanon? He said, I was born there. I love it. I love the people. I said, it's very dangerous going to Lebanon. There are some ambassadorships that are wonderful. There are some that are dangerous. I said, Michel, his name is. It's a he, Michel, very elegant man. And I said, why would you want this? And he said, because I love my country and I love those people. I said, it's very dangerous. He goes, I don't care. This is not a man that lived on danger. He's a very successful man.
Hey, if you like my show, hit that like and subscribe button. Double tap that screen, guys. Let's make YouTube. Let's make all these commies at YouTube know that Team MPE is the king of YouTube. Let's do it, guys. Come on. Support the channel. Support America. Support patriotism and a return to the constitutional republic. Let's do it.
And from here, and he wanted to be the ambassador despite probably a very dangerous situation he's going into. You see what's going on. But I had great respect for that. He loves that country. He loves it. He was born there. He loves the country. Yeah.
Mr. President, you've got a big, beautiful parade coming up on Saturday.
We do.
What's your biggest expectations for that? And I've got a second question in regards to Gavin Newsom. Go ahead and talk about the big, beautiful parade.
It's such a, thank you, Brian. It's such a, I think, important moment for this country. 2 weeks ago, I was calling people and back and forth with leaders, including President Putin, including French president, including lots of different people.
Hey, Christy.
And all of them said, we're celebrating victory in World War II. And I said, wow, isn't that amazing? We're the only one that wasn't celebrating, and we're the one that won the war.
Yeah.
Now, Russia did help. They did lose 51 million people, in all fairness. People would say, oh, he's sticking up for Russia. No, they lost 51 million people. And
so does anybody believe that Trump caused the war with Iran? Or do you think it's because Iran always says death to America, and finally we said enough is enough? I'd like to know what you guys think.
No, we can't forget that. But France was celebrating. And as you know, Hitler made a speech at the Eiffel Tower. But when I spoke to President Macron, he said, oh, we are celebrating the great victory of World War II. And I think that's great that he was doing it. But we're the one that won it, and we weren't celebrating. I said to myself, isn't that crazy? And I think it's time for us to celebrate a little bit. We've had a lot of victories. We won 2 world wars, and then we go out and change the name of the forts where we won the wars. You go out. We win world wars from Fort Robert E. Lee, from Fort Bragg, from all the different forts. And what do? We change the name of the forts because we want to be politically correct. So a lot of them we're changing back. You probably noticed Fort Bragg and others. But I think it's a time to celebrate our military. We've rebuilt our military largely. Little low on ammunition. That's because it goes out very fast to other countries, one in particular, but we'll get that back very quickly. But we have a military the likes of which nobody has. Nobody comes close. We have the best equipment in the world. We make the best equipment in the world. There's no military like our military. We showed that with ISIS. I was told by the television generals it would take 4 years to win.
That's true, Kyle.
And we did it in 3 weeks, and it was headed by General Raisin Kane, who's now the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's great. Just left him. No, I think it's time that we celebrate. And I sort of have to laugh at these people. Well, you're going to spend a lot of money. A lot of that money is being paid for by me and people that make donations. I don't know if you know that. A lot of it won't even come out of the military. I think I can say that, Susie, right? we have people putting up money to do it. Not that it's necessary, because I think it's a great expenditure. We have mini tanks. We have all sorts of new ones and very old ones, old from World War
Gloria, good
I
seeing
and World War II. It's really a celebration of the Army. So the Army is a year older than the country. So next year we celebrate 250 years, but we're celebrating the Army on Flag Day.
Gloria, what happened with Chile? Put it in the comments if you can talk about it. If not, we'll do a private chat afterwards. I'd like to know. Chile de Castro is a good friend of mine. He's he's part of the auditor community, which I am as well, holding the government accountable. So I'd like to know what happened with Chile.
And it's not my birthday. It is my birthday, but I'm not celebrating my birthday. I'm celebrating Flag Day. It happens to be the same day, so I take a little heat. But Flag Day is the appropriate date. And we're celebrating 250 years of the Army, a great service. And remember, think of it. We won so much. We won World War I, World War II, so much else. And then we became politically correct. But I can only tell you that I was told that ISIS would take anywhere from 4 to 5 years, and we did it in 3 weeks. You were there, you watched, right? We have the greatest military in the world. Nobody can beat us. As long as we have our right leadership, nobody can beat us. If we have stupid people running it, like you had in Afghanistan, when you look at that, first of all, Afghanistan should have been an easy victory as a war, but we were so sad the way we fought it, so ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculous.
We fight not to win. But we didn't used to be that way.
So are any of you a little bit concerned that the news media tried to blame Trump for Sleepy Joe surrendering to the Taliban and leaving billions of dollars of equipment behind to the terrorist enemy of the Taliban? Do you really think it's Trump's fault that Sleepy Joe created the largest geopolitical disaster in the history of this country and got a lot of my Marines killed who had orders that they were not allowed to defend themselves? Got them wiped out towards the end of that war. Does anybody really think it's Trump's fault that Sleepy Joe surrendered to the Taliban and destroyed our country's reputation all across the world? Or do you really want to blame Trump? I'd like to know what you guys think. Put it in the comments.
And we're celebrating because I think the day in Afghanistan was the saddest period of time in the history of our country. That was a Biden mess, with bad generals like Milley and others. They were bad. They were incompetent generals. I know all the good ones and the bad ones. We got rid of most of the bad ones. But it was time to celebrate, and that's what we're doing. So it's on June 14th, and it's going to be a parade the likes of which I don't know if we've ever had a parade like that. It's going to be incredible. We have even though it's the Army, we have a lot of those.
Even though it's the Army. Hey, look, being a Marine, this is a little old, okay, this video. But I'm catching up with you guys, and we're going to segue into the real reason for the war against the Iranians. And what it is it's a war by the BRICS nations and the Federal Reserve fiat currency system. The CIA and the Mossad do not want to lose their stranglehold on the world's economic system, with the United States dollar as the world's reserve currency. That is the real reason for this war, and we're going to get into that in just a few minutes.
Those Army airplanes flying over the top, and we have those beautiful pieces of art I've ever seen. It was a piece of art, the beauty of the Concorde. It was the most beautiful plane, but it was got you there in half the time. Now you spend a lot of time, and there's no reason for it. Because, they have the sonic boom. It's not a huge problem, but they have the sonic boom thing pretty well figured out. The technology changes, the change in the skin, the change in weight, all of the other things. There's no reason why we shouldn't do great. So we are making it possible for them to do.
Everybody say a prayer for my friend Chile de Castro over at Delete Laws. He's a good guy. Look at Gloria's comments. Regardless of whether you're an anti-American, communist, Marxist, Democrat, or you're a libertarian like me, or you're one of these rhino Republicans, we should all come together when God's children are suffering and try and help them, especially if they came here legally and didn't violate our laws. Give me a bunch of ones for Chile de Castro, guys.
Supersonic and get us back on the track. I mean, think of it, 30 years ago, we actually had planes that flew much faster than we do now. It took you half the time to get to a location. So we've regressed, and we're going to progress. Right. Sort of an amazing thing, isn't it, though? We've gone backwards. On Wall Street, they haven't done that. If Goldman Sachs was like that, you wouldn't have Goldman Sachs anymore. Yeah, please.
Are you planning to deploy Marines in California to address the situation in Los Angeles? Are you going to deploy Marines in California?
We'll see what happens. I mean, I think we have it very well under control.
So he ended up having to deploy Marines because the Walmart and the Communist Chinese Party have been funding these riots. They actually had Craigslist ads where they were inviting people to come. They bring in pallets of bricks where they can ship off bricks and throw them at law enforcement as well as regular citizens. And this is an absolute insurrection, guys. There's no other way you can describe it. This is an anti-American insurrection. It's an attempted overthrow of our country. And we have at least 21 million illegal aliens who were invited into this country without paperwork, having no idea who they are, for the sole purpose of the Democrat Party trying to redistrict the country blue using the United States Census. They don't even have to vote. All they have to do is just have their bodies here. They'll be counted in the next census, and the entire country will become just like Canada. You will have no freedom, and you'll have to move to a third world country to have any semblance of freedom. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. Give me a bunch of twos if you think I'm a tinfoil hatter. I'd like to know what you guys think.
I think it would have been a very bad situation. It was heading in the wrong direction.
Hey, Rami, good
it's
to see
now
you.
heading in the right direction. And we hope to have the support of Gavin, because Gavin's the big beneficiary as we straighten out his problems. I mean, his state is a mess. And I'd like to get somebody involved in the rail because, look, personally, it should have never been built because you can fly there for $2. And what are you doing? They're doing that. You could drive. You could do lots of different things. You know, if they did a study, if you gave every passenger the finest limousine service in the history of our world, the most expensive chauffeur-driven white glove limousine service back and forth, we would have saved billions of dollars as opposed to building this monstrosity that's going up. And I've never seen anything. You know, I've seen cost overruns. I'm a person, I've always done well on cost overruns. I don't have them. But I will tell you, I have never seen cost overruns. You see them with it.
Hey, Rami, if you've got that link, drop it in the sidebar and I'll make that my next video. I'm almost done playing this. This is an older video. I just wanted to kind of give you the history of where we were prior to the parade and then where we're headed right now. The next one I'm going to do is a JD Vance video. And then I'll get into the BRICS currency and the real reason for the war, which is a battle over the Federal Reserve versus BRICS currency. So hopefully you guys, Rami, if you can shoot me that link, I'd really appreciate it, brother, because I know you wanted me to cover it. I think it had to do with General Wesley Clark discussing what's going on over in Iran.
20% more, 100% more. These are years ago. By the way, 40 years ago he had no. He was bad 40 years ago. We're not just talking about. And they always like to say age, but it's not age. I know people 88, 89, 92. Bernie Marcus, who just passed away, was 95. I spoke to him a year before. He was 100%. It's not age. It's something else. But whatever it is, you can't have that in this country. The damage he's done to this country is unbelievable. But the good news is we've got much of it fixed already, and the rest of it will happen.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, you just mentioned Iran. Did you discuss Iran?
Very
Did you
well.
discuss the Gaza war?
Yeah, we discussed a lot of things, and it went very well. Very smooth. We'll see what happens. You know, we're trying to do something with a country we just spoke about, Iran. I think you should negotiate this. You might be better. I think I'm going to send you today. What a good idea. This could have been the idea of the day. We'll have Dara get up and negotiate. They are good negotiators, but they're tough. Sometimes they can be too tough. That's the problem.
Thanks, Rami.
So we're trying to make a deal so that there's no destruction and death. And we've told them that, and I've told them that, and I hope that's the way it works out. But it might not work out that way. We'll soon find out. Yeah, please.
In 2020, when you were talking about unrest in American cities, you said, quote, "We have to go by the laws. We can't call in the National Guard unless we're requested by a governor." What changed now? Why is this situation different to not consult with Governor Newsom about this?
Well, I can tell you, number one, don't listen to this lying piece of garbage reporter. He did consult with Gavin Newsom, and Gavin Newsom refused to do anything, along with that piece of garbage communist mayor of Los Angeles, Susan Bass, to do anything to protect the citizens of California. So Trump used his executive authority to call in the National Guard, which I'm telling you right now, as a lawyer with over 20 years experience, he had the absolute legal right to do. This is a foreign insurrection in our own country. And the fact that Newsom and Karen Bass allowed this to happen tells you everything to know about these people, tells you everything that you need to know about them. Let's keep going.
Change from that statement is we have an incompetent governor. So I talked about governors, but I didn't talk about he's an incompetent governor. Look at the job he's doing in California.
Garbage.
He's destroying one of our great states.
Absolutely.
And if I didn't get involved, if we didn't bring the Guard in, and we would bring more in if we needed it, because we have to make sure there's going to be law and order. You had a disaster happening.
Thanks, Outdoorsman.
And they now admit it was a disaster. I watched the chief yesterday, who's a good man, by the way, and he said, well, we're lucky we did this because they were overwhelmed. You saw what was happening. So we did the right thing.
Right.
Everybody agrees
Katie.
to that. But you have a governor who let the city burn down, didn't want water to be sent down to him.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom, a complete piece of garbage, a total disgrace to this country. So this is now a recent video. It's only about 3 minutes, I think. I'm hoping it's only 3 minutes. We'll get into this, and then we'll get into Rami's video about the real reason for the war in Iran. And it's really the Federal Reserve versus the BRICS currency system. That's all this is about, guys. And then I'll get into some of my stock picks, like I try to do on my shows, so you can survive if you've got a Roth IRA or if you've got a SEP IRA. Obviously not legal advice. I'm just telling you what I would do in a situation like this when we're at war, and obviously when Bitcoin's falling and XRP is falling and Ethereum is falling, what you can do. I honestly, I'm going to be buying the dip, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But definitely the next video we're going to do here is with Vance, and let's see what he's got to say.
100% confidence that Iran's nuclear sites were totally destroyed.
Well, Kristen, I'm not going to get into sensitive intelligence about what we've seen on the ground there in Iran, but we've seen a lot, and I feel very confident that we have substantially delayed their development of a nuclear weapon, and that was the goal of this attack. That's why it was a success. And of course, what happens next, again, Kristen, is up to the Iranians.
Substantially delayed by years? What does substantial
Well, again, Kristen,
mean?
I'm not going to get into sensitive intelligence here, but I think that we have really pushed their program back by a very long time. I think that it's going to be many, many years before the Iranians.
I disagree. I think that the Iranians had those enrichment sites set up as a straw man. I think that they'd already removed all of their nuclear fissile material from those locations prior to the attack. And I think that Iran has had nukes for years. The only thing I'm surprised about is that they haven't used them yet. But with Sleepy Joe's wide open borders, there's no telling how many anti-American radical jihadis flooded across the border. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree that we're at major risk now for sleeper cell attacks in the United States. And we know that communist China is one of Iran's biggest allies. They use the yuan to buy oil from Iran to go around that trade embargo. So look, this is the tip of the iceberg, guys. I guarantee you that nothing has happened to any of Iran's nuclear material that's substantial or significant. I believe they've got nukes, and now with communist China's help and these hypersonic missiles they're launching into Israel, they're going to level Israel. And this is the start of World War III, guys. And unlike the politicians that you're so proud of, like Sleepy Joe, those guys have underground bunkers that they get to retreat to, but we don't. So it's really, guys, you guys need to wake up. This is a battle for our very survival at this point. Let's keep going.
Iranians are able to develop a nuclear weapon. We have to step back a little bit, Kristen, and remind ourselves that we negotiated aggressively with the Iranians to try to find a peaceful settlement to this conflict. It was only when the president decided that the Iranians were not negotiating in good faith that he took this action. Yeah. He didn't take it lightly, but I actually think it provides an opportunity to reset this relationship, reset these negotiations, and get us in a place where Iran can decide not to be a threat to its neighbors, not to be a threat to the United States.
Oh, and somebody commented earlier that I'm upset that I'm bald. I actually shaved my head. I'm not bald. I don't even have any bald spots. I just like having a shaved head because I'm a weightlifter and I train judo with my son. So I just like having my hair short. It goes back to being a jarhead. I just love having short hair. But no, I can assure you guys, I actually have a full head of hair.
United States, and if they're willing to do that, the United States is all ears. As the president said repeatedly, is that this maybe can reset here. The Iranians have a choice. They can go down the path of peace, or they can go down the path of this ridiculous brinksmanship, of funding terrorism, of trying to build a nuclear weapon, and that's just not something the United States can accept.
They've got
them. No interest in boots on
the
ground. The president has actually been one of the fiercest critics of 25 years of failed foreign policy in the Middle East, which is why he did what he did. A very precise, a very surgical strike tailored to an American national interest, and that national interest is Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Right.
It would be a disaster for us and for our allies in the region. So I don't fear that this is going to become a protracted conflict, because I think that we have a president who knows what's in America's interests and is willing to do.
Guys, Ryan Labs joined the chat. Good seeing you, brother. Give me a bunch of ones for Ryan Labs. He's another normal, critical thinker, unlike all these Marxist Democrats who showed up in my chat who are just totally basically doing whatever CNN tells them to think, or whatever they learned on their safe space at Berkeley by their communist professor. It's always nice to have someone in here who's a critical thinker, who's able to actually think. So good seeing you, Ryan Labs.
Do the things necessary to accomplish that interest. We want to end their nuclear program, and then we want to talk to the Iranians about a long-term settlement here. We believe very strongly that there are two pathways. There's a pathway where Iran continues to fund terrorism, continues to try to build a nuclear program, attacks American troops. That's the bad pathway for Iran, and it will be met with overwhelming force. There's another pathway on the table here. There's a pathway where Iran integrates itself into the international community, stops funding terrorism, and stops trying to pursue a nuclear weapon. This is a reset. This is an opportunity for the Iranians to take the smart path. We certainly hope that
Thanks,
they will.
Gloria.
Well, I think the foreign minister is exactly wrong. We didn't blow up diplomacy. We only took this action, Kristen, when it was clear, as the president said, that the Iranians were tapping us along.
All right, so now we're going to get into it. So, guys, I'm attorney Michael Ehline. I am a California and Texas attorney. I primarily practice personal injury law, but my background is in appellate law and civil rights. And I became a lawyer because I had a small business. I was a construction guy. I was a licensed contractor. My background is I'm a blue collar guy who worked construction. And after dealing with clients who didn't want to pay me and would always go to the contractor state licensing board, I ended up becoming a paralegal because I didn't want to spend all this money on lawyers because I would just go bankrupt. So I started litigating my own cases administratively through the CSLB. And then I ended up getting beat up by a West Covina cop over a parking ticket because I asked him for his ID back in like 2006. And this guy charged me with resisting, obstructing, delaying under California Penal Code Section 148. So after 2 years of sweating it, thinking that I would get a misdemeanor on my record, I ultimately beat that charge. So that got dismissed, and they basically wrote me a parking ticket. The judge was really cool because she knew that I was in the Corps and that I was a disabled Marine. She understood that I didn't do anything wrong. I had witnesses, I had declarations from everybody. I was the corporate wellness director for Bally's Total Fitness. Again, I've got a really long history in the fitness industry. I used to work for Ray and Packy Wilson of the original Family Fitness, which became 24-Hour Fitness. And then I worked for Chin Yol Yi and Lewis Welch at LA Fitness and helped them set up the Anaheim Hills location off of Santiago Canyon Road in Knoll Ranch. And I became #1 in sales, and then ended up becoming the corporate wellness director for Bally's. But after I had that altercation with this corrupt law enforcement officer who lied under oath, I decided I wanted to become a lawyer. But because I didn't have an undergrad or any kind of formal training from one of these colleges, I found a way to become a lawyer on the California State Bar Law Office Study Program. And so I'm one of about 80 guys up to that time who became a lawyer with no law degree or undergrad. And then later I was admitted into a law school. So I was already a practicing attorney by the time I earned my JD, but they waived the requirement of the LSAT. They waived the requirement of having an undergrad and just let me into the school because I'd already passed the baby bar. And that's a very similar program to the girl Kim Kardashian, who just finally became eligible. She got her certificate of completion from the California State Bar Law Office study program. I've got articles online about how you can become a lawyer without law school. And I sell a book about how you can become a lawyer with no law degree or undergrad on my YouTube channel for $19.99, a digital ebook that does that. So just to give you an idea of my background, I'm a military historian, I'm a patriot, and I'm a recovering Democrat. The Democratic Party didn't leave me. Strike that. I didn't leave the Democrat Party. The Democratic Party left me. They just become a bunch of radical weirdos. I mean, who the hell thinks that there should be tampon machines in the boys' restroom? And who on earth would ever think it's okay for a man to compete in women's sports? Give me an effing break. Why would anybody be part of a system like that? Completely demented cuckoos, guys. Give me a bunch of ones if you think this cult of wokeism is completely cuckoo and just stupid. The dumbest thing you've ever heard of in your life. All right, so let's listen to what Wesley Clark has to say. It's only a 1-minute video, and then we'll get back into the last video that I was doing about the BRICS currency system, about what's really going on in this country.
10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the joint staff who used to work for me, and one of the generals called me in. He said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, No. He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
Wow. So that is wild. Thanks for sharing that, Rami. So you guys get the idea, I think. Wesley Clark, another patriot who was destroyed by the anti-American communist news media and lawfare. Absolutely. So let's see what the next one is. Okay, so this is the video that I left off on, and this is a Scotsman who's talking a wee bit about the BRICS currency system, mate. And so I used to live in Motherwell, Scotland. So I got a wee bit of a Glaswegian accent, don't you know? And if you got a problem, mate, I'll give you a wee Glasgow kiss. All right, Jimmy. So let's go ahead and get into this video and let's listen to what he's got to say. I'm not going to play it from the very beginning because we covered this in part 1 if you want to go back and watch that video that I recorded earlier today. But let's get into it. Let's learn a little bit about what's going on, what is the BRICS currency system, and kind of understand what's really going on.
5 billion a year in ordinary years that the American taxpayer spends on them. I don't know the cost of a fleet of aircraft.
All right, Jimmy, just give me a wee second, mate. I don't know what happened, mate, but it looks like I got sent back. All right, here we go.
Douglas McGregor. Colonel, if they'd consulted you before last night, what would your advice have been to them?
Well, there wouldn't have been a strike.
Well, Patrick says it's not Glaswegian. Well, Patrick, that's because I was in Glasgow in the 90s, and now your government has flooded your country with anti-British jihadis. So unfortunately, I don't have the Pakistani accent that you might want me to have mixed with Glaswegian. However, mate, my accent is the correct one. And I have not been there in quite a wee bit of time, mate. So it's a wee rusty. All right, Jimmy, let's go.
And we would not now be at war with Iran. And I think the most important thing for your audience to understand is something that most Americans don't understand, George.
Anybody who wants to see the video that I recorded earlier, if you go to my YouTube channel and go where it says live, you'll be able to check out my coverage of this war. If Rami or one of my mods wants to throw it up, that's fine too. If not, just go to my YouTube channel, click on the area that says live, and you'll see all my live shows. Most of the videos that I have are live. I don't really do a lot of regular videos. I'm trying to get Rami to help me produce some decent regular edited proper videos. He's a producer, great guy, by the way. Make sure to like and subscribe to Rami's channel. But yeah, most of the stuff I do is live. I'm a practicing attorney, so when I do these shows, it's donation driven. I don't have a huge budget to do this. It's basically super chats and people buying subscriptions to my channel that drive it, or people who buy my book about how to become a lawyer with no law degree or undergrad. But I'm not a beggar, so I don't sit here and go, please give me a super chat. I just keep doing them, and I get my wife's blessing to keep doing the shows. Let's keep going.
The United States is now at war with Iran as Israel's critical and ultimately only real ally. It's very important to understand that, because this is something that Israel, its lobby, and ultimately its agents in the United States have tried to bring on for 30 years. They've now achieved it, which explains why Mr. Netanyahu last night was almost giddy in his response. He knows that he's finally got what he wants, because this war is going to expand. It's going to take time. How long is anyone's guess that it could have terrible consequences? So I think there was a failure at the policy-making level to understand what they were doing. And if you listen to Trump, this is not a man who wants the war. And so instead of a strike going in, even though this had been rehearsed for innumerable times over many years, even though they'd rehearsed it and practiced it, what they ultimately did was harm nothing and accomplish nothing. They hit the equivalent of empty buildings, empty targets. And then after doing so, he announced that he was now ready for peace, which is the ultimate expression of self-delusion. He now has a full-blown war on his hands. But until the Americans are hurt in some demonstrable way, most Americans will not understand this, and they don't understand it, George.
That's a big mystery. Of course,
So Gloria says, thank you for the super chat, Gloria. That means a lot. As you guys know, I put those into a Roth IRA for my daughter, who helps me with the administration of the channel. So I appreciate that. Give me a bunch of ones for Gloria for helping support Team MPE. And for all you people who are new here, I am attorney Michael Ehline. I've got about 20 years in practice as a lawyer, and I am a libertarian. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the common law republic. I believe in a non-fiat based currency. I believe that we should return America back to a currency that's backed by something of intrinsic value, like gold or silver. There are some things that the Republicans do and that Trump does that I like. There are a lot of things that he does that I don't like. But 99% of the things that the Marxist Democrats are doing, I'm a recovering Democrat, I don't like. I just don't like what they're doing. I don't think that boys can be girls. I don't think that girls can be boys. And I don't think we should have tampon machines in the men's restroom. I'm basically someone who has common sense, and I'm a critical thinker. So if you like my channel, please make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel, right? We never know, because we know that the people who run this channel are probably more closely aligned to the people giving negative comments in the chat than they are with me. So give me a bunch of ones if you agree with that. So let's get back into it.
I said in my monologue, the IAEA say there's no radioactive material in the atmosphere. There's no sign of emission. And so either there was no material there in the first place, or it did not succeed in getting anywhere near it. And the Israelis are beginning to say that now. Channel 13 this evening said that you cannot destroy Iran's nuclear program by bombs. In which case, why go to war with them?
Well, I tend to agree with you, but there are two things that are now very clear. Number one is that Iran is going to double down on its war with Israel.
Absolutely.
In fact, within the next 2 weeks, I'd be surprised if Israel is not entirely destroyed. Secondly, Iran is receiving and will continue to receive enormous amounts of aid and support, particularly from Russia and China. Three, the Iranians have now collectively decided to close the Straits of Hormuz. There are 50 oil tankers sitting in the Gulf, packed or filled with oil, ready to transport through the Straits of Hormuz. They're not going to move. They're going to sit there. They are now hostage to the closed straits. What are we in the United States going to do about that? Well, frankly, we don't draw on the oil from the Gulf for the most part. It's not going to make much difference to us, at least in the short run. But this is going to have a terrible impact on the rest of the world. There has been no thinking, once again, about the long-term strategic consequences. There was no thinking about, is this the right way to achieve the aim? Because if you're an Iranian right now, you're going to do everything in your power to build a nuclear weapon. In fact, I would argue that there will be countries all over the world that will now build nuclear weapons because they don't want to be visited by the United States Armed Forces in the middle of the night.
It's a problem.
We are the threat. We are the rogue state supporting the other rogue state,
Thank
Israel.
you, Rami.
And then finally, no mention is being made in this country in any way, shape, or form of what's happening in Gaza. There's a complete failure to understand that Gaza is the catalyst for the larger war that's now going to begin against Israel. Every Muslim country is going to come on board against Israel, along with Russia, along with China. I'd be surprised if Mr. Putin doesn't make it very clear to Mr. Netanyahu that if he contemplates using a nuclear weapon, he needs to understand something. If you do this, if you use a nuclear weapon against Iran or anyone in the Middle East, we will use a nuclear weapon against you. I'd be very surprised if he has not already said that. We don't understand what we've walked into because we're not informed. We still think this is 1991.
Yeah.
Listen to the rhetoric. I'm ready for peace now. We've made our point. We hope the Iranians understand us and will make peace. Have you lost your mind? The war is now just beginning.
That's right.
Yes, it's not the beginning of the end. It's merely the end of the beginning, as Mr. Churchill said. Now, the impact of all this on Donald Trump's popularity, all the hypocrites are coming out. Nancy Pelosi is denouncing this lawless act of brigandry. All the Democrat hypocrites who would have done exactly the same thing. Of course, they represent nearly half of the American people. And therefore, how many of Trump's voters now desert him is going to be a huge factor in the midterms, isn't it? Its impact on MAGA is surely going to be significant because this is a total about-face for the Donald Trump that people thought they were electing. This is the man who denounced the Iraq War, who denounced Obama, accused him of being ready to go to war with Iran in order to win an election. This is the Tulsi Gabbard who said just weeks ago that in terms there was no case for this kind of an action. When people do an about-face like that, they must lose a part of their base. How do you quantify that, Colonel?
Well, the desertions from so-called MAGA have already begun because MAGA turns out to have been a myth. Let's be frank, it was never real. People voted for something that was never real. You've got to go back to the Republican National Convention. And during the Republican National Convention, there was a giant Israeli flag on the wall. And there was a placard above the flag that said, Israel first. And then a gentleman walked out to the podium, ostensibly representing the Israel lobby, and tried to lead cheers for Israel first. Well, the response was tepid, to say the least. But the people that voted for Donald Trump didn't understand what they were listening to. The signal was unambiguous and clear. You were voting for Israel first. And that's what you got for a cabinet. That's what you got for a government. Now, as you point out, that applied equally to the other side, regardless of what the other side says. We have a government in Washington that is corrupt to its core.
Absolutely.
It's corrupt, it's ineffective, it's incompetent. And that's what we are now going to discover in the days and weeks and months ahead. The whole place is going to come apart because this war is going to expand. The family dictatorships that controlled the Arabian side of the Persian Gulf are not going to survive this. The Saudis are at high risk. Why are they at high risk? Why is King Abdullah in Jordan at high risk?
And with Sleepy Joe's wide open border, we have no idea how many jihadis and sleeper cells just walked across with nuclear fissile material and weapons of mass destruction. Just a few weeks ago, some communist Chinese were caught sneaking across the border with this fungus that they could put into our crops that would destroy all of our crops. Communist China is buying military bases all around. Strike that. Chinese communists are buying farmland, along with Bill Gates, another disgrace to this country, around U.S. military bases so they can monitor what's going on. This is an absolute, and Katie Hobbs, an absolute disgrace, right? She went ahead and vetoed a bill that would prevent the communist Chinese from being able to do that. Our own government is eating us from within, being paid off by drug cartels and by our communist enemies. And this is a battle between the BRICS nations and the Federal Reserve System. Make no mistake about it. This war is being fought over whether or not the U.S. Federal Reserve currency remains the reserve currency of this country. That's what this is all about, guys. You're worried about the left-right dichotomy. I'm worried about the natural law, common law republic that our founding fathers intended for us to live under before the bankers destroyed our country in 1913 with the creation of Jekyll Island and the Federal Reserve System, when traitors in our own government created this abomination called the Federal Reserve, the privately run Federal Reserve Bank. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree.
Because there are hundreds of millions of Muslim Arabs that are saying this is unacceptable.
Absolutely, Lenny.
This must stop. And you're going to see new governments come online. We are going to lose everything as a result of this overseas. We are inevitably going to be driven out of the Middle East, the thing that everyone said we were fighting to prevent. And we're going to watch Israel be destroyed day after day after day. In other words, the world is going to be turned upside down. Everything that we've supposedly worked for decades will be lost. Now, in the long run, this is a damn good thing for us. We need to get out of these places. We need to come home. And we haven't even talked about the potential for really bad things to happen inside the United States. Set aside the very likely financial meltdown that is coming. As soon as we start to lose troops, men, people, ships, anything, you're going to see the stock market react very negatively. That's not just the market, but we have the bond market. You're going to watch the interest rates rise. We're going to try and suppress the inevitable inflation that results. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen. And as these things grow worse, the demand here at home for change in everything. Most important, change overseas. Come home. No more wars.
By the way, I'm attorney Michael Ehline. You're getting a different spin from me than you're going to get from the Marxist-run news media or Fox News, which also owns the commie New York Times, controlled opposition. You're just going to get the truth. I'm a critical thinker. I'm a libertarian. I believe that our rights are granted to us by our Creator, like it says in the Declaration of Independence, not the state, not the government. I believe in a free market-based economy, not the faux capitalism that we have now. And I believe that we need to return back to the constitutional common law republic that our founding fathers intended for this country. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. Make sure to double tap, like, and subscribe and become part of Team MPE. If you want to pick up a membership, they're super cheap. A subscription where I do private back channel meetings where I talk to my members, and I'm trying to create a parallel system where we do business amongst each other, similar to what Adam Smith envisioned for this country in his book called Wealth of Nations. I homeschool my children. I'm training my son to be an Olympic judo champion, and I spend most of my time rearing my children and keeping them away from the blue-haired mafia that's destroying the minds of our children. And if you agree with something like that, this is the channel for you. Okay, let's get back into the video.
Pressure is going to be overwhelming. Doesn't matter who is in Washington and what they say. They're all going to confront this. So this is a in the language of fools in Washington, a game changer, as though this were a game. This is a strategic sea change. We don't get it, and we're not going to get it until all of the bad things happen that are coming. And by the way, there are a lot of...
Oh, hell yeah, Yusef Mansour. I think you're one of my 2A rights guys. Thanks for becoming a member. That means a lot to me. It's nice to have somebody on board who wants a different opinion than all this left-right paradigm bullshit. This is exactly the channel for you. Guys, give me a bunch of ones for our new member. Awesome.
People that are in the intelligence business that are professional who are now worried about terrible things happening here inside the United States. Our borders were open for years, George. We don't know who's in the country. We have people worried about the explosion of a dirty bomb inside our borders. And we should be worried, extremely worried. But until these things happen, the American people will not really wake up. They may walk away from Donald Trump and say,
well, welcome aboard, Poopy. We got a 2A rights guy. So a lot of you guys may or may not know that I am friends with Dick Heller of District of Columbia versus Heller. It's the seminal case on Second Amendment rights. I think it was authored by Justice Scalia. And I do Second Amendment rights cases, not as much as I used to because I can't feed my family doing that. I primarily do catastrophic motorcycle accidents for military veterans. I'm a supporter of the Leathernecks Motorcycle Club, but my true love is the Second Amendment, because without the Second Amendment, you couldn't protect the First or Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, Seventh, so on and so forth. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree that without the Second Amendment in writing, the Marxist Democrats long ago would have outlawed firearms like they've done in Canada and Australia and the United Kingdom, making it impossible for us to have any way to overthrow an unjust government as the Declaration of Independence requires, or keep the government in check, as well as anybody thinking they want to invade our country. Let's get back into this video. This is Colonel Douglas McGregor. He's a retired U.S. Army colonel, and he's talking about basically how we've gotten into World War III. And of course, my view is that this isn't really about Iran having nukes. This is about a battle between the BRICS currency system and the Federal Reserve banking system, the fiat currency system being the world's reserve currency. That's what this is all about. Obviously, the CIA does not want BRICS currency to take over like it is. And why wouldn't it, when BRICS currency is basically based on what our founding fathers and our Constitution requires for this country? A currency that's backed by something of intrinsic value, gold or silver. How these bankers were ever able to take control over our currency system, there's a long history behind it, but in my view, it's unconstitutional, and it was treason for our governors, our senators, and our congressmen to embrace this fiat currency system. And that's what this war is about. No question in my mind about it.
what a mistake we made, but they're not going to demand real action until they're hurt. That's coming.
As the meme says, doesn't matter who you vote for, you get John McCain. Do you think there was any real opposition inside the leadership on this, or was that too deception?
You know, I have trouble believing anything that comes out of the government these days. I have to be frank. I know there's an awful lot of theater that goes on to try and entertain people and make them think something's happening that isn't. These people are feckless. They don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand what they've done. There's not a shred of humanity in any of them. One look at Gaza alone should be enough to drive people completely out of the region and say, no more. No more cooperation, no collaboration against anyone with Israel until Gaza stops. It never comes up. It's not on television. And if it's not on television for most Americans, it probably doesn't exist.
Finally, Colonel, and here I draw on your diplomatic and other skills. If I were a Russian leader and Mr. Witkoff, say, or Mr. Rubio came to talk with me, I would have difficulty keeping a straight face as they made commitments or expressed intentions, because I would say, I've just watched you in real time deceive your own people, deceive the world about your true intentions with regard to Iran. Isn't this a potential death blow to American credibility diplomatically?
Absolutely. No one believes anything we say anymore. So that would be a complete waste of time. No one believes that we can be trusted any longer. This is a death blow for that purpose. In the meantime, though, the Russians are bearing down on Kiev. Large numbers of their troops are moving offensively to the west. They're going to cross that river. They will move on Kiev, and they will move south towards Odessa. That's a foregone conclusion. And they can do that while they simultaneously support and assist Iran. I guess Russia just isn't as weak, backward, and incompetent as everybody said. And by the way, neither is Iran.
No, absolutely correct. But what about China? Might this be an opportune time for China to make a move on reunification with Taiwan?
China doesn't have to do that. Taiwan will voluntarily join China. That's a lot of nonsense. Neither the Chinese on Taiwan nor the Chinese on the mainland are interested in going to war with anybody for any reason. They're all about business.
That's right.
Their long-term goal is to end up looking a lot like Singapore. That's their model. This is not a warlike nation by any stretch of the imagination. You know, somebody was telling me the other day, doesn't President Trump understand the reason so many of our ships are so rusty is that they are at sea all the time? He keeps pointing to the Chinese ships, says they're not rusty. Well, of course they're not rusty, because they spend most of their time in port. Well, if you spend most of your time in port as a Navy, how good are you? You know, the Chinese are not interested in a war. That's all crap. But the Chinese are very interested in doing business. And you pointed to BRICS, and you pointed to the one belt, one road, and you're 100% correct. Iran is vital and essential to that project. And it's also vital and essential to Russian national security, because it touches the soft underbelly of Russia, which is Central Asia. Iran is not going to be allowed to lose. There will be no defeat of Iran. So if we double down on this, as I'm sure we'll try to do, we won't have any choice, because we're going to be the recipients of retaliation. It's not going to work.
Thank you, as always, for a masterful tour of that horizon. Colonel Douglas Macgregor, retired U.S. Army Colonel, author, and defense and foreign policy consultant. How I wish Colonel Macgregor had been in the White House over this last few days. Let's take a quick break, then it's your calls. Coming up is Colonel Richard, two colonels in the same show in Texas. Iran, U.S.
Oh, aye, Jimmy. All right. Let me get back to it, mate.
Because something Colonel Macgregor said triggered something. In one of his interviews with Tucker Carlson, he made the point that we don't know exactly how many, but a significant number of the Javelin missiles that Trump gave to Ukraine during his first term were sold on the black market.
That's
and
true.
Have ended up in the hands of the Mexican drug cartels.
Wow.
We don't know how many of the 1,000 or so Al-Qaeda trained terrorists.
And it's not just Trump, guys. So Sleepy Joe sent tons of armaments over there. I have friends who are mercenaries over there fighting on behalf of Ukraine. As you most of you guys who are my subscribers know that I'm an inactive Marine, and I still stay heavily involved in the Marine Corps community. I help disabled veterans, and I give speeches at the Wounded Warriors Battalion at Camp Pendleton to try to help Marines suffering from culture shock find jobs and stuff like that. And the bottom line is Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries on the planet. And by most estimations, I have this on good authority, about 60% of the military equipment, small arms and handheld missiles and stuff like that, end up on the black market. A lot of it going to terrorists as well as Russia. I mean, Russia has a lot of our equipment as well that was sold to them on the black market. This is just reality, guys. Ukraine is an incredibly corrupt country. Their president is totally corrupt, and that's what's going on. So don't assume it's just Trump. The military-industrial complex still makes its money, but our enemies are also getting it, and a lot of it's going to the drug cartels in Mexico, and they're allied with communist China, as well as the BRICS countries. So don't assume for a minute that we're not going to have terrorist attacks within this country thanks to Sleepy Joe's wide open border. It wouldn't have been very hard for them to smuggle in combat drones, missiles, nuclear fissile material to make dirty bombs. And by us kicking this hornet's nest in Iran, we basically invited this upon ourselves. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree.
That were smuggled into the United States have those missiles. Now, everybody thinks of them as only an anti-tank missile, but they can also be used as an anti-air missile, and they have a 2.5 to 3 mile range. Now, along the Texas Gulf Coast and Louisiana Gulf Coast, we have a tremendous concentration of oil refineries.
Right. And before we finish this part, so one of the commenters made a kind of a daft remark that Iran doesn't have missiles. Look, communist China has been bringing in hypersonic missiles into Iran since this war started. And Israel's getting leveled with these hypersonic missiles. I don't think that Israel's going to last long. And mark my words, we're going to have no choice but to put boots on the ground in Iran. But wherever that nuclear material is, I guarantee you it was not in any of those facilities that we bombed. There were trucks pulling up to at least one of their locations at least 2 days before we attacked, removing that stuff. I have that on good authority, and I've done a video about that earlier today. And there's videos all over the internet that shows you satellite images of trucks pulling up and driving away. We know that they picked up that material and took off. So we are not going to have any option, guys, but to put boots on the ground. And in the interim, we're going to be facing sleeper cell attacks within the country. And I'm going to be showing you a video where our government is finally starting to warn us about that. This is no joke, guys. That's why I'm telling everybody, buy ammo, buy gold and silver, buy some tents, buy a gas generator, buy some iodine pills. And as soon as the attacks start, get the hell out of the suburbs and the cities, because a lot of these illegal aliens that Biden invited across, it's going to be like zombie attacks. They'll come to your town. They'll come to your house. Sheltering in place is the absolute worst thing you could ever do.
LNG terminals. Just think what can be done with Javelin missiles fired from standoff range, and we don't have enough troops to guard those facilities. That's what I worry about.
Well, Colonel, I warned throughout this Ukraine war that the practice of pouring weapons into the most corrupt country in Europe, as it was adjudged to be by the most august journals in Europe before the beginning of this war in Ukraine, the most corrupt country in Europe, now having at its disposal billions upon billions of dollars of often portable weaponry. What do you think is going to happen? And from what you say, amongst the consequences is that the cartels have now got many of these weapons. Right. Do make your second point, Colonel.
My second point was a point that Garland Nixon made last night. He said that the Iranians should go to the United Nations and say, all right, we are complying with the United States' demand to give up our ballistic missiles. We're doing it one salvo at a time.
Okay, Colonel, you nearly had me there. Thank you very much indeed for that call. Colonel Richard in Texas. You can scan the QR code right now and leave a comment on the YouTube stream. Chris Moyo did. Trump thinks himself a beautiful dictator, a golden dictator who cracks the whip wonderfully like no other. And Ian McKillop says you could go back even further. How about the theft of the Philippines in 1898? I could go all the way back to the halls of Tripoli. The US ruled it as a colony until 1946. And by the way, Ian, a colony, it's on its way to being again. Wol Fantunbi says Merz showed Trump his great-grandfather's birth certificate was a calculated move to let Trump know you can't say no to us. And Patsy Maximus says, is it also a coincidence that Israel has increased the rate of slaughter in Gaza since they bombed Iran, including many waiting for food at AIDS sites? Aid sites that they were told to go to
Kurt Bronson,
in order
good seeing you,
to
brother.
alleviate famine, and in which scores have now been murdered, if not hundreds. Hamza the historian says, I'm a Middle East expert and an American. America will undoubtedly lose to Iran. They can collapse our economy in less than a month via Hormuz and the Red Sea. Let's go to California, where Shaf wants to talk about Trump. Shaf, welcome. What do you want to say?
Hello. So I'm an avid Trump supporter. Well, I was until, I've been sending him emails and messages, and sometimes I get a response, sometimes I don't. But the most recent response was in regards to, what's going on in Gaza and how Netanyahu's probably going to start bombing Iran. I sent this before he bombed Iran, and then a few days later, I received a message from the president saying, we are 100% Israel supporters, and everything we do is for the glory of Israel, basically. And I posted that. I just posted the screenshots of that today on my Facebook and my Twitter. But anyways, and basically, everything I said ended up happening, and it's ruining President Trump's legacy, in my opinion, because, as a whole, Muslims decided, Kamala Harris would not be able to do anything to stop Israel. So we supported Trump and everybody voted basically for Trump through, the guise that he was going to try and prevent everything that's going on in Gaza. And now we have multiple fronts that are being battled against Islam through the propaganda that is posted daily on Twitter. And in regards to that, I tried to report some of the propaganda that gets put on Twitter, and all of my reports came back as no action taken. But when I posted a big write-up about, Israel and their actions, that got censored right away. And after that, my views on...
And the Iranian parliament just voted to block the Strait of Hormuz. So I know one of the commenters said they won't do it, but the reality is that's what's going to end up happening. And towards the end of the show, I'll tell you what my stock picks are right now. It's going to be UVIX and SVIX, but we'll talk about that to where you might be able to maybe survive through this, because obviously if you've got a stock portfolio and you didn't put a stop loss on it, and obviously since it was the weekend, the markets are closed, you probably lost a lot of money. And if you're not a long-term investor, you're going to be hurting, guys. Your 401ks, your IRAs are going to be hitting the freaking rock bottom, man. I feel for you guys.
On Twitter went from, a little bit that I was getting to absolutely nothing now. And, that's fact to the testament that,
they will
Israel
block.
is
Yeah.
controlling everything that goes on in American politics. And that's not America first at all.
No, it's not it's not Israel that's controlling it. It's the people who support Israel that are controlling it. And the people who support Israel are both of the sides of the Uni Party. It's in the American empire's interest to support Israel. And they ruthlessly enforce it in the ways that you've just been talking. Iran committed two great sins, and none of them have anything to do with nuclear. After all, when the Shah wanted to go nuclear, the American company Westinghouse successfully bid for the project to build the nuclear plants. in Iran. The two big sins of Iran are, first of all, they are the only state, Yemen being a partial state, and others being liberation movements, resistance movements. Iran is the only state that took action to defend the Palestinian people in Gaza and to contest the absolute domination of Israel in the region. That's its number one sin. Its number two sin is that it is an indispensable linchpin in the new world that is being born.
Katie.
Russia, China, Iran, the Belt and Road Initiative, the North-South Corridor, the means of breaking free from hundreds of years of Western hegemony require as a hinge a free, sovereign, and independent Iran. Ergo, if you destroy Iran's sovereignty and independence, you create one hell of a problem for the development of the new world. Thanks, Shaf. It's been a huge week, I must say. You've been really generous this week. A big thanks to this week's top donors who went to the Moats.tv website and donated. Sally?
He has gained a lot more political power, because, especially with the Secretary of Defense, because he's like a war fighter. He's big, physically imposing. The Israelis call him the gorilla. He's really pushing for this, kind of overriding and really influencing the Secretary of Defense. And they wanted this attack to happen because it would happen under him, because he steps down in July, probably to go into an actual political position within the administration. So we're seeing that the Trump administration is also icing out anti-war, anti-interventionist voices like Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, who said just by going in front of the Senate and saying Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapons program. And the consequences of this are anyone's guess. For the moment, it's if you have a nuclear program, don't give it up. In fact, get nukes, because that's kind of the only deterrent that you have right now. You know, after Libya and after this absurd Operation Midnight Hammer, we've definitely become more at risk of a nuclear global security event now. I mean, I've even seen like water cooler talk and supposition that in order to stop.
You know, I hate to say it, but I agree with them. Look, all that bombing and stuff, those Iranians that already moved their nukes, they're not giving them up, and they're a BRICS nation, and that's what this is all about. This is about the BRICS currency system versus the U.S. fiat, Federal Reserve, World Reserve currency. That's all this is about, guys. Communist China is not going to let Iran lose this. They're giving them equipment, supplies, and missiles, hypersonic missiles by some estimates. This is just the start. So I don't have a whole lot of time. I've got to train some Newaza with my son, which is basically what you guys call Brazilian jiu-jitsu that they borrowed from Japanese jiu-jitsu, Japanese judo. And I also have to do some tutoring. I homeschool my kids, so I can't go all night. But I do want to share with you some video from the Communist News Network, CNN, so you can see what I told you earlier, which is basically thanks to Sleepy Joe opening our southern border, there are probably hundreds, maybe thousands of sleeper cells and drug cartels that have flooded our country with weapons of mass destruction that will probably be used against us. This is my fear. So let's see what's going on over at the Communist News Network and see what they have to say about it.
Across the street, partially or completely destroyed in the case of at least one of those buildings. And somehow there were no fatalities as a result of this strike, but dozens of people were indeed injured. This was one of more than 20 Iranian ballistic missiles that were fired by Iran in the first strike since the United States carried out its attacks on those 3 nuclear sites in Iran. A few of those ballistic missiles did indeed make their way through Israel's air defense system. system. But the question now is, what more are we going to see from Iran in terms of a retaliation? Israeli officials are certainly expecting much more from the Iranians than just this one barrage of ballistic missiles that came several hours after the United States carried out those strikes. And for the U.S. as well, there are questions about retaliation towards U.S. troops that are stationed in the region. There are tens of thousands of United States troops in the Middle East currently, many of those much closer to Iran than we are right now, some of them even just a few dozen miles away, meaning that Iran doesn't need to use its sophisticated ballistic missiles. It could use other types of shorter range missiles to go after those U.S. troops. President Trump, for his part, making clear, of course, that the Iranians need to come to the table, and making clear also that should Iran strike at U.S. forces, that there will be a U.S. retaliation. Jeremy Diamond, CNN, Tel Aviv.
All right, Jeremy, thank you very, very much. I want to go live
Makes
right
me
now.
cringe seeing
Our
Wolf
chief
Blitzer,
global
piece of
affairs
garbage
correspondent,
commie.
Homeland Security is warning of a heightened threat environment in the United States, citing potential cyber threats and lone wolf attacks.
Listen up, guys. Thanks to Sleepy Joe, there are a lot more of these people in our country who just walked right across. The Democrats were more concerned about using the United States Census to redistrict the entire country blue by offering free shit to illegal aliens than they were about our border security. And now the chickens are probably going to come home to roost. Even the Communist News Network is finally admitting it. Let's see what these commie pieces of trash over at CNN have to say about it.
The bulletin warns that pro-Iranian hackers are likely to attack U.S. networks and that others affiliated with the Iranian government could issue similar attacks. Let's go live right now to CNN senior national security reporter Zach Cohen, who's over at the Pentagon for us today. Zach, you're reporting on the behind-the-scenes efforts within the Trump administration about the decision to strike Iran. What are you learning?
Yeah, Wolf, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane, the four-star general, stood side by side in the briefing room on the podium, dueling podiums today here at the Pentagon, and really gave the first details about what is the most significant military operation of Donald Trump's presidency. And look, while this was a moment where they both shed light on things and how this military operation was carried out, it was also a moment that really underscored the dueling approaches that sources have described to us, both behind the scenes and in the lead up immediately to this operation. Pete Hegseth.
So look, guys, one thing I won't tolerate on my channel is you guys making comments like 86 someone and then putting their presidential number. Calling for someone's killing or murder is not something that I'll tolerate on my channel. I don't care if you're an anti-American Marxist Democrat or you're a Rhino Republican. We're all human beings. We're all God's children. Don't ever encourage someone to unalive someone, regardless of their viewpoint. That's unacceptable on my channel.
The defense secretary spoke first during today's press conference, and really lavish praise on President Donald Trump, really also accentuating the immense success of the military operation targeting those 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Of course, then Dan Kane spoke second, really a more subtle and sober view of both the operation itself, saying it's too early to say just how successful the strike was. And that's consistent with what we've been told both men are like behind the scenes. Hegseth really fits that image of what Trump looks for in some of his top officials out of central casting, as the president likes to describe it. He's been very visible, forward-looking, but beneath the surface, he's also been marred in some controversy. You may remember nearly his job was on thin ice just a few months ago after that Signal chat was leaked. Dan Kane, much more behind-the-scenes focused, does not enjoy being in the spotlight quite as much, but is somebody who Donald Trump has leaned on significantly, especially in the lead up to this military strike on Iran. So both men sort of serving different purposes in the administration, but we're told that combined they were and unified today as they presented what Donald Trump is already claiming is one of the biggest military successes of his second presidency.
Yeah, it was really a fascinating briefing at 8 a.m. this morning over at the Pentagon with a lot of details, surprising details that were released as well. Zach Cohen, thanks very much. Zach's over at the Pentagon. Joining us now to discuss more about these developments surrounding the U.S. attack on Iran, retired U.S. Army Brigadier General James Spider Marks. He's a CNN military analyst. General, thanks
for joining us. What's your early assessment right now of just how successful these U.S. strikes were in disabling these Iranian nuclear sites?
Well, the strikes themselves, in terms of the execution, is quite phenomenal, and we should expect that from our military. I mean, the integration of all the various services, aerospace power, from top to bottom, was done extremely well. Two things stand out primarily is the level of operational security and the notion of deception. The fact that there was a deception operation sending B-2s to the west while B-2s were en route Iran. So it's too early to tell what the effect was of the operation. Bomb damage assessment will come over the course of the next hours and days. Satellite imagery will reveal a lot, but there also, we can imagine with a degree of clarity that Mossad had some pretty significant penetration into the nuclear development, the R&D capacity of Iran. And Mossad is probably going to be able to extract some of that intelligence, and we'll know a lot more going forward. That'll take a little more time, but this will become pretty clear pretty quickly.
As you know,
Yeah, absolutely,
Iran
Mendy.
has now responded. He's vowed to respond to these U.S. attacks. What kind of military capabilities does Iran actually have left?
Well, they have the IRGC.
That's funny.
We should be concerned about sleeper cells here in the United States and certainly in the region. They have an ability, they still have a capacity to reach out and cause damage. And Iran also has launchers. They still have launchers and they still have missiles, mostly short-range missiles, which can impact where a lot of U.S. presence is currently in the region. So I think it's fair to assume with the increased force protection posture, not only in the United States, but in the region as well, that U.S. presence is going to be safe, but they'll have to be diligent. But Iran may choose to take an opportunity to go after those targets, but it would be counterintuitive because if they struck, if they achieved success, the United States would respond again. And I think where we are right now, the United States did a tremendous job on the strikes that just took place. They are now handing the lead back to the IDF, to Israel, to see what the next steps are. So I think Iran would be wise not to go after U.S. targets.
The U.S., as you know, General, has approximately 40,000 military personnel stationed across the Middle East, but a lot of those troops are very close to Iran in the Persian Gulf, whether the Fifth Fleet, which is over in Bahrain, the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, or the El Udeid Air Base, or the other bases in Qatar and the United Arab Emirates.
Hey, I'm with you, Ryan Howard. I've been warning you guys for the last 5 years. What the hell is Sleepy Joe doing? Flooding our country with illegal aliens and criminals from third world countries, from sub-Saharan Africa, Haiti. I mean, what the hell? This is America. You should be able to take a test. You should be able to prove your loyalty to the country before we just invite you in. We had a perfectly capable legal immigration system. There have been people waiting for years to legally immigrate into this country. We could do background checks, make sure they're not a threat to our national security. What does Sleepy Joe, Autopen Joe do? He floods our country with over 20 million people. What was this guy thinking? What an absolute disgrace this guy is. The primary job of the president is to protect our national interests and our border security. He couldn't do anything. The guy didn't even know where he was half the time. Complete disgrace. Give me a bunch of ones if you think Sleepy Joe was the worst president in the history of the United States. And give me a bunch of twos if you're an anti-American Marxist Democrat who thinks that he was the best. I'd like to see what you guys have to say.
Emirates, for example. What kind of precautions or defensive steps will the Pentagon be taking to guard against the potential Iranian attack against these U.S. facilities and these U.S. troops?
Well, first of all, there's been the threat, the very clear message from this administration that if Iran were to strike out again and try to...
Oh, and I'm with you, Katie Morgan. I'm a big RFK guy. I think that Big Pharma absolutely is an abomination. The FDA and the CDC, abomination. Don't agree with that at all. So I'm with you, Katie. So one thing you guys are going to find out about my show is that I'm a critical thinker. So I'm not one of you partisans who believes in the whole left-right paradigm. I just want what's best for America and for my family. And flooding my country with illegal aliens and giving them free health care and free everything is not what's best for my family. What's best for my family and your family is a legal immigration system. We need immigrants, but we need people who are loyal to our common law constitutional republic, not people who were invited here by Sleepy Joe for the sole and express purpose of redistricting the country using the United States Census by sending them to Democrat sanctuary cities. And that's exactly their game plan. That's exactly what they're trying to do. But right now, the bottom line is, guys, let me get rid of this. We're done watching the Communist News Network. There's only so much I can handle. So I'll do open mic now. If you guys want to ask me questions, anybody who's got a super chat or wants to buy membership, I'll put your questions to the front of the line. What we're going to do right now is we're going to talk about what can you do besides buying, right on, Sam, besides buying obviously an AR-15 and probably some 40 round mags, some mag pulls, a tent, a gas generator, some gas. And by going to the Army Navy surplus, picking up some MREs and some non-perishable foods. Well, me being an optimist, I always believe that you need to be an optimist. You always have to hope for the best. You know, I was reared up as a Christian. My parents had me in private schools, thank God. That's probably why I did so well passing the bar with no undergrad or any formal training from a university system, is because of that private school education. And one of the things that I was taught in Christian school is always be an optimist, always hope for the best, always treat people properly. Pastor Fagerstrom always said, we must be courteous, considerate, and kind to others. And I really do try to live by that. Sometimes I lose it like everybody does. But besides doing all that, what can we do? Well, hope for the best, obviously, but plan for the worst, okay? Because the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in combat. We learned that in Marine Corps boot camp. And it holds true to this day as a civilian, as someone who has never even served in the military, right? I mean, it holds true to this day. And so just really quickly, I just want to put this thing up on the screen. Give me 1 second, guys. And by the way, I appreciate everybody showing up today, even you anti-American Marxist Democrats. I love having you here because I'm not about winning over people. I'm about winning them over with common sense. And unfortunately, if you were brainwashed in the public schools to hate your country, or you went to some Marxist-run university, it's going to be hard to win you over. But I'm going to try my best to use common sense to try to get you guys on board with Team MPE. So let's get into. Let me do this. Let me get some good music going. Too bad I don't have a cigar, so I could. That sounds pretty good. All right, yeah. Too bad Chevy didn't show up with some new music for me. I still would have played it, for crying out loud. So let me tell you how I would handle this. So there's something called the VIX. And this is just me. I'm not giving you financial or legal advice, okay? But this is what I do. For example, when the Democrats tried to assassinate Donald Trump with their Ukrainian proxies, what ended up happening is the VIX, I think it went up to like 200 on the fear side. So right now, you were able to, I bought some VIX for like $24 a couple months back. UVIX, and it's a 2 times leveraged ETF that basically goes up when the stock market goes down. So I bought some options, and I'm hoping that they don't expire by the time it gets really bad. But the idea is when the fear index goes up, the price of UVIX, which is this 2 times leveraged ETF, goes up. And so your $24 that you paid could potentially, like tomorrow, I think it's probably going to open probably around $62 a share. And I've got a couple thousand shares of that. So any money that I lost on MSTY or MSTU, hoping that Bitcoin would be a huge success, and it will be at some point, but it goes up and down. It's very volatile. I should be able to make up for in my UVIX purchase. So UVIX is definitely something that I personally believe in, but it's very volatile and it's for more experienced investors. So I recommend you watch some YouTube videos about it. I don't have any that I can recommend to you right now. Now, the other thing that I would recommend for me to do, and if you're into it, would be SVIX. So whenever the market goes down, SVIX goes up. So basically, these are stocks that are based on the Fear and Greed Index, or the VIX. So if you're somebody who's a day trader, if you've got a Robinhood or an E-Trader type of an account, well, Sam, I'll do a show about crypto. I'll bring some of my buddies on. I think crypto is real money. It's actually backed by something of intrinsic value, unlike fiat currency. Obviously, I don't think that the Federal Reserve Bank likes crypto, and that's why they haven't lowered interest rates. They're trying to make sure that Trump can't replace our Federal Reserve currency system with crypto. But unfortunately, now I'm thinking maybe Trump was just not telling the truth, because he's supporting, by invading Iran, a war against the BRICS currency countries, which would replace the Federal Reserve currency as the world's reserve currency. So now I'm really confused about Trump, and I feel like one of the commenters said earlier that maybe he is on the Mossad's list from the Epstein stuff. We know that Ghislaine Maxwell's father was a top Mossad agent. Many people believe that Epstein Island, with all of its cameras watching all these Democrat and Republican politicians following little children, were able to blackmail our entire country. And that's probably why we invaded Iran. That's what a lot of people say. But I'm digressing. Let's get into what I'm going to do with my investments right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at, hopefully UVIX is low tomorrow, but once Iran tries to shut down the Strait of Hormuz and the world's oil supply is disrupted, stocks are going to crash. Right now, I think that Bitcoin closed at 106,000 a coin on Friday. I think it's down to like 99 or 100,000 right now. I haven't checked the markets, but the difference is you can kind of gauge things because cryptocurrency trades 24 hours a day. So you can kind of put your finger on the pulse of where the stock market's going by monitoring cryptocurrency, believe it or not. And so if cryptocurrency went down, that means the stock markets probably went down too, and they're probably going to have crashed. We're probably going to see like a Black Friday or a Black Tuesday or whatever they call it. What do they call that? I don't even know, but we're probably going to see the markets down really low tomorrow and the VIX Fear Index really high. And because of that, if you have UVIX, or you don't, even if you don't have UVIX and you've got to buy a little high, I think the UVIX is going to keep going up until we put boots on the ground in Iran and find the nukes that they have. I just don't think that the world's economies are going to do well as long as Iran keeps sending these hypersonic missiles and level Israel, because the Israeli banks are the primary banks that run the United States Federal Reserve private banking system. So just keep that in mind. So as a result of that, the only thing that I think you can do besides getting survival equipment and things like that is think about when we recover, because I'm an optimist, that if you make the right decisions, like I hope that I'm making, that UVIX is probably going to go up to 60, maybe even 100, 200 bucks. And if you bought in low enough, or you bought some options, if you bought some options even more, you might end up making a couple of $100,000 out of this as a long-term investment. And if you buy SVIX right now, which leverages against the greed index, so as the economy goes up, SVIX will rise. As the economy goes down, SVIX goes down. So I think it's a one-time leverage ETF. I'm probably going to sell my MSTY, take a 50,000 or more loss, take that money and dump it into SVIX. And as the economy improves, or maybe with some options on SVIX, as the economy improves, SVIX is going to go up. And so basically it's the way that I hedge when the economy does bad. And this is what all those This is what all those big banks do. This is what all those hedge funds do. So I just try to do what they do. And I also follow Nancy Pelosi, try to get any insider trading tips that she's got. Obviously, I think we all know that she's not very smart. So she probably gets tips and does her investments based on that. And she became a multi-million, over, I think almost $500 million between her and her husband. So I think that would be, and by the way, Katie, although your money is insured up to $250,000 by the FDIC and the banks, guess what? Good luck getting that money. So when you put in a claim to FDIC, it could take years for you to get that money. And it's not money, it's fiat currency. But the fact remains, you're not just going to get it. So how are you going to survive between now and then? Well, one of the things that I do is through my Roth IRA and my regular investment account that I pay capital gains on, I'm going to be looking at SVIX and UVIX. And if give me a bunch of ones, if you guys want me to do a show about that, if I can get enough people to come in, I'll definitely cover that for you guys. But with the Strait of Hormuz being shut down by the Iranians, I think we're going to have some serious problems. And I think that the stock markets are going to crash. And because of that, my leveraged hedge that I'm going to do using SVIX and UVIX, I feel comfortable. The music's good, but it's too loud. Okay, thank you for letting me know. I'm going to turn it down a little bit. Is that a little better? Hopefully that's better. Sorry about that, guys. By the way, guys, I just picked up this mic. I was sounding like I was in an echo chamber. And so a lot of my viewers were like, spend the money, Mike, spend the money. And unfortunately, I'm not getting enough donations to really do what I want to do, to really build the channel. I'm not getting enough super chats and enough membership purchases to really build the channel like I wanted to, because I'm trying to make it self-supporting. But I went ahead and just spent my own personal money, and I picked up my own personal Federal Reserve notes, and I picked up an SM7DB. And I'm hoping that you guys like it. I think that it has pretty good sound. I've got it in dark mode. Thank you, F, for letting me know. By the way, guys, give me a bunch of ones for F. F is one of my best moderators on the channel. And one of the things my moderators do is let me know, put their finger on the pulse and let me know how things are sounding, what's going on. Let me know if someone's trying to threaten someone. But other than that, my mods don't generally time people out. I don't believe in that. They just look for people who are real trouble. So I'm pretty good on allowing people to say what they want to say. But the SM7DB, I think is pretty good sounding. Give me a bunch of ones if you like the way it sounds. Give me some comments if you think that I need to. You're welcome, F. Give me some comments if you think I need to do anything to improve my sound quality, because I just set this thing up and I'm still trying to dial it in. And let me just check around here really quickly, privates. Let me see really quick. I just want to show you one of the other ways that you can help support the channel. Just give me 1 second. All right. So another thing that you can do to sort of help Team MPE and help build the channel and help get the world of common sense and critical thinking out there to the world is pick up a digital version of my ebook, My Journey to Becoming a Practicing Lawyer with No Law Degree or Undergrad. So I've been practicing law for about 20 years. I'm licensed in California and Texas. I primarily do catastrophic injury cases, so I don't really do a lot of Second Amendment rights cases anymore. But Alan Beck with my firm is one of the best Second Amendment rights lawyers in the country. And I definitely think that you should stock up on as much ammo as you can get your hands on. Hopefully you don't live in communist Fornia. And if you do, get the hell out of there and homeschool your kids. Don't let them get brainwashed so they sound like some of these commenters in the chat. Totally brainwashed, have no idea what they're talking about. So I guess in closing today, guys, we had a really good show. We got over 200,000 views. Make sure that you double tap that screen because we're in vertical mode. I try to do this because I want to get the younger crowd so I can teach them about their unalienable rights, about natural law, where their rights come from, teach them about the constitutional common law republic, teach them about a non-fiat based currency that's backed by something of intrinsic value. And hopefully help them learn a little bit about the history of this amazing country. I bleed red, white, and blue. And so I'm hoping that I can get you guys into the scene of loving America, but not having to love your politicians or your government. At the end of the day, we the people are what matter, and I believe in forming parallel systems. I have people and I have guests on that talk about homeschooling, about homesteading, growing your own food, getting off all this junk that's been approved by politicians who've been paid off by scumbags who have revolving door employment at the FDA and the CDC. Big time supporter of RFK, definitely a legit dude. And that's basically who I am. And Gary says that BRICS is a fantasy. Look, I don't know. I'm not sure if it is. It's actually backed by something of intrinsic value. And that's the reason, in my opinion, we're going to war against Iran, because we're trying to prevent China and Russia, and why we're at war with Russia, to prevent them from instituting the BRICS currency system. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. And if you want to learn more about the BRICS currency system, watch the live that I did earlier today by going to my YouTube channel. And again, if you want to pick up a copy of my book, I'll grift a little. It's $19.99. You go to my YouTube channel, you click on the description, and I'll send you a digital version of this ebook. You can pay through PayPal. I think there's another way to pay through another way that Life Under the Microscope set up for me, but he's not here, so I'm not really sure how that works. So right now, it's going to be through PayPal. You can reach out to one of my moderators, Gloria or Rami, if you want to get my email, and I'll try to help find an alternative way to get you the book. But it's basically an inspirational story of how I slept on park benches and saved my money, saved my fiat currency, worked at a Home Depot from 3 to midnight, was an extern for the city of Los Angeles criminal prosecution division, where I learned from one of my mentors how to do litigation, and then ultimately got jobs with a lot of different personal injury attorneys, worked my way up to where I was making an enormous amount of income doing complex litigation for many different lawyers. And ultimately, I became a judicial extern for the California Court of Appeal. So it's a really inspirational story that shows you that it's not based on your race or your gender or who you want to have sex with. It's based upon merit, how hard you work, and how you present yourself that determines your success in this world. Because you can have everything in life that you want if you can help other people get what they want. It's just common sense, guys. And so I try to inspire people and teach them that. And because I really do care about people. I really am somebody who loves his country, and I love the American people. Even if you're a Marxist, anti-American Democrat, or a Rhino Republican, there's still hope for you. You can turn from the dark side, and you can turn to common sense by helping me create parallel systems where we teach parents how to homeschool their kids, and we can learn about investing, we can learn about cryptocurrency, and we can try to save our fellow Americans from themselves. And so that's really what this show is all about. And I know, so Groveland says I'm an ambulance chaser. Well, that is true. I guess that's the word for personal injury attorneys. But I primarily help military veterans who have been involved in catastrophic accidents who just don't like lawyers or trust lawyers. Because of my background, being a Marine and being an honorable person, they know that they can trust me to make sure that I go to war against the insurance companies and get them the most for their injuries. And that's what I do. So not all of us are bad. Not all of us lawyers are evil. There's a few of us that put America first. And you'll notice that most personal injury lawyers are hardcore Marxist, anti-American Democrats. That's not me. I'm a true libertarian. I'm a recovering Democrat, and I put America first. So with that being said, guys, do you have any questions for me before we go ahead and call it an evening? I'm going to take a look here if there's any questions in the chat. And yeah, if I agree with you, man, it's sad. And say a prayer for Chile de Castro's family. That's always sad to hear that someone's injured or has a problem. And I appreciate that. Kurt Bronson says, we're grateful to have you, Michael. Well, look, it's hard for me to do these shows, guys. I'll be honest with you. I'm already going into time that I'm supposed to be doing some randori and newaza with my son in the backyard. I'm a judoka, and I teach my son judo. and he's really good at it. And I've got a background in Muay Thai, BJJ, and judo. And I really believe in the samurai spirit and honor and discipline. And I want to instill that in everybody, with single moms with kids in particular, to get your kids into some kind of martial arts and teach them spirit and discipline. Because spirit and discipline isn't just the hallmark of a Marine, it's the hallmark of a successful person in life. And so if you're inspired by my background, again, pick up a copy of my book, the digital version of this book, My Journey to Becoming a Practicing Lawyer with No Law Degree or Undergrad, where I discuss the different states that offer law office study programs where less fortunate people can become lawyers without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a law school. And, you can learn a little bit and get inspired. So, well, be safe with judo. Well, I'll tell you. So judo, what it means in Japanese is the gentle way. And so in judo, we teach each other to protect our opponent, our uki. And that's something that you need to learn as a young man. It's not about being a badass. The only competitor that you really have is yourself. You want to improve yourselves. And judo is the way that I was able to do that. Now I have really bad sciatica, but it's not from judo. It's from being injured in the Marine Corps. And over time, it's just wiped me out. Bad knee and spine injury. But I'm doing everything that I can to try and inspire you guys to be better people. So hopefully you guys like that. And I'm just looking for any questions that you guys have in the comments. And if I don't see anything, we'll go ahead and call it a night tonight. But yeah, guys, we got over 200,000 views tonight. Let me tell you what we got. Tonight. Pretty good show. And I've had shows where I've gotten almost 1 million views. So I'm not like saying this by any means was the best one. But look, I'm getting the word out there, and that's what matters. So let's take a look here. Let's take a look at our analytics, guys. So tonight we picked up, let me see if I can, well, hold on a minute. Just bear with me, guys. Bear with me. So that's the one from yesterday. This is the one from today. By the way, the poll says that, was Sleepy Dementia Joe the worst president in history? It looks like 60% of you say yes, and the bots from communist China, 40% say no. So let's take a look over here and let's see how many people joined us tonight. Just give me 1 second, guys, and then we'll close it out. Unless you have any questions, I'll answer any questions I get. 243,579 views. Now, I don't know how many of them were anti-American communist Chinese bots, but hopefully enough of you were not bots and were able to learn something about what's going on and why I believe that this war is really about BRICS currency versus fiat currency. And no, Dustin, I don't think we need to fix our public schools. We need to get our children as far away from the rainbow flag, blue-haired mafia as we can and homeschool our kids. Malcolm X said something very, very prophetic. And what he said is, why would you let your enemy raise your children? Why would you send your kids somewhere where they're being politically brainwashed to hate their country and they're being taught that white people are oppressors and that they're oppressed? You don't think that's not going to create a race war? I do. I think that Barack Obama was a disgrace, what he did to this country by trying to create a race war. And I think that we need to return back to sanity in the principles of Martin Luther King, where we judge people not based upon the color of their skin, but by their character. Give me a bunch of ones if you agree. I think that's what it's really about, man. And Sam says he agrees about the currency. Well, I'm glad that we agree on something, Sam. And again, I'm not here to try to criticize people or anything like that. Oh, right on. What's the Matter You showed up. Guys, give me a bunch of ones for What's the Matter You. He's my alter ego on this channel, one of my best moderators as well. You're all great moderators, but What's the Matter You stands out because he stood with me when all these people were so happy that my friend Chile de Castro was falsely imprisoned and jailed. And What's the Matter You stuck with Team MPE. It supported me while I was trying to run Chile's YouTube channel while he was locked up. So at least he was able to produce some kind of an audience and some kind of an income while he was locked up. I know I'm not the best host. I know I'm not the best YouTuber, but I'm getting better at it. And it's because of people like What's the Matter You, because What's the Matter You has made it clear to me, give the people what they want. And what What's the Matter You says is Trump is clearly the worst president in history because he printed more fiat currency in his first term than all other presidents combined, stealing from all of us, father of the Vex, so much more. Well, let me tell you something, guys. Donald Trump has always been a liberal Democrat all of his life. And so my position is that he, well, more of a blue dog Democrat. My position is he's more of a Kennedy type of a Democrat, and he just ran as a wolf in sheep's clothing. He's not a conservative by any stretch of the imagination. And I agree that this outrageous spending and stuff is not a conservative value. I consider myself to be pretty conservative, but I'm very socially liberal. So take it or leave it. The Democratic Party left me. I didn't leave them. I'm now a libertarian. Thank you, Gloria, for the kind remarks. And I appreciate it that you like the music. So with that being said, guys, it looks like we're going to go ahead and close it out. It is now almost 9 o'clock on the Western Seaboard, and I've got to do some training with my kids and do some homeschooling now. So just be disciplined, guys. Get your kids out of public school. You're doing yourself and the country a disservice by letting Marxist Democrats raise your children in the public schools. And with that being said, guys, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because we never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. Make sure to always subscribe and make sure to save. Save it. Save to view for later. Pick up a copy of my book to get inspired. And God bless you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Semper Fi, do or die.